Well, good Tuesday evening to everybody in the house. Hope everybody's doing quite well. This is Dennis from Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show. Hope everybody's having a great week. Boy, oh boy, have we got a good show for you tonight. I could say that honestly because last night when we did our dry run through of the show, tonight's guest and I, we actually, what would usually be a regular 20-minute run through turned out to be an hour and a half. Very interesting fella. And of course, his wife as well, and his lovely dog. We got a good one. Anyways, I'm Dennis from Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show. This is episode number 32, and I'd like to welcome everybody. Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show is a weekly live streaming show that runs at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daylight Time right now. And it's a show that brings you closer to the great outdoors. We bring you hot topics regarding to the outdoors and outdoor adventures that you enjoy and watch, whether it's on YouTube or abroad, right? So basically, it's a show that's going to bring you nice and close and get you up and personal with the people that you enjoy. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button down below and hit the bell notification. We do have some great shows coming up here in the near future, and I'm just going to go through a couple of them with you before we bring our guest up. Next week on the show, which is May the 19th, we will have Stephen Coutts on the show. Stephen and I will be discussing the lost art of canoepoling. For those of you that might know about it, it's very cool. For those of you that don't know about it, it's still very cool. So you'll want to tune in. It's really neat, something that I definitely have on my radar to check out this year and try out if I can get out there at some point with all this stuff going on. Also, not this Friday, but the following Friday, which is May 22nd at 7 p.m. For those of you that tuned in a couple weeks ago when we had Chris Prose on, we talked about putting together a special edition show where we can talk about shooting video and doing photography in the backcountry as well as editing backcountry cuts. So if you're looking to learn some interesting techniques, if you're looking to learn how to edit, how to set up some great shots, how to set up or utilize your camera equipment to the best of its ability, you'll want to tune in. That's going to be a 2-hour special show on Friday, May the 22nd. Mark it on your calendars, and we hope to see you all there. You'll hear a lot about it here in the coming weeks. And just to let you know who's actually going to be participating in that show on screen here, we're going to have Chris Prose. We're going to have Matthew Haughn, who is the producer and does a lot of video work for the show Mark in the Park that is on the Rogers Television Network, as well as on his channel. You can see an episode tomorrow night. And also we're going to have Ben Stacey from the YouTube channel 2 Men in a Canoe. The reason why we have these guests on is because they are all in the business of they're all videographers. They all do editing and stuff like that. And they all have great channels with great content that everybody compliments them on all the time. So in my opinion, in our community, I'm bringing on some of the best people to be able to do that. So May 22nd, mark that on your calendars, everybody. Just want to say thank you to each and every one of you that are currently subscribed to Canoehound Adventures. Today we hit a bit of a milestone for me anyways. We hit 2,500 subscribers. I thank you all very much. I never thought my channel would even grow to be this size, just for something that I'm doing to have fun. But I appreciate everybody who tunes in and watches the videos, and to all of you that have subscribed. It really does mean a lot. It really does mean a lot. I hope everybody is safe and healthy right now with all this COVID stuff going on. I won't get into that because you guys get to hear it week after week. But stay safe and healthy, and thank you to all the frontline workers out there. And as you know, I love to hear your feedback. So if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, if you would like to see any particular topics or guests on the show, drop me an email at canoehound@gmail.com or send me a message on Facebook Messenger. I would be more than happy to try and get it on the show. I have a pretty big lineup coming up here in the next couple of months, people that I'm trying to get on the show. But it never hurts to put more people on the list and be prepared, right? So send them across. And let's see here. As you know or may not know, down below there, you'll see right down around there, you'll see a new join button. For anybody that wants to become a member of Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show or Canoehound Adventures, and you want some back-end perks and all the neat little things that go along with it, behind-the-scenes stuff, we're going to start working on all that stuff. But check it out. It's a great way to support the channel. And as you know, this stuff that we're doing here is not free. Most of it comes out of my own pocket there, buying subscriptions for the streaming and things like that, and all the equipment. Every little bit helps. And even if you don't join, you can always support by just subscribing and watching videos. That always helps as well. And I'd just like to welcome some of our new members to the memberships. Under the day tripper level, we have Nate Muskoka, who I believe is in the chat now over here. And he'll be popping in a while there to join our guest tonight and get in on the conversation. Ari Rosen, who's in the chat, I see. Ride, Paddle, Repeat. I even believe he's in the stream tonight, in Beastly Ironworks. And then at the solo tripper level, we have Sty North. Thank you, guys. Your appreciation is so greatly appreciated. It means a lot. It really does. And one last thing here before we get into our guest. I know I could babble on here, but that's only to give everybody the opportunity to get into the stream before we introduce our guest. But tonight's show, just like all the others, is a very interactive show. I encourage you to ask questions of myself or mostly of our guests. The only thing I ask is if you put a question in the comments, to make sure you put the letter Q in capital letters before your question so I can more easily identify it. Something I want to try new tonight is maybe let's go through about the first half hour of the show before we start asking questions, because I do have a lot of questions here, but I would like to try and bundle up all the questions together, and it makes it easier for me to find it up and down in the chat here, because as you can see, the chat gets going pretty good. So, but if you do have a question, feel free to post it a couple times. If I don't notice it, I want to make sure I get them all up there for you. Okay, without further ado, tonight's guest is a popular YouTuber, and along with his brother, were the winning contestants of season 4 of the History Channel's Alone series. He's a canoeist, a bushcrafter, and an all-around outdoorsman, and who, along with his wife Heather and his dog Bella, love to explore the outdoors and some pretty remote areas. I'd like to welcome to the live stream tonight, Ted Baird and Heather Baird. How you doing, guys?
We're good. How are you?
Oh, I was hoping you would do that, man.
The iconic, yeah.
Yeah.
Did I not see like a meme somewhere where somebody did the whole, like it was like a whole minute video of that? Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there was a few. We had some pretty fun things come through. Someone even sent us messages that her parents had done a Jim and Ted Alone themed birthday, and they had a cake and like a canoe and a crab trap and little bubble things with people yelling, yeah. Like, it was pretty funny.
Oh, that's cool. Cool. Very cool. Wow, man. So how you guys doing through all this stuff?
We're all right.
Yeah, we're going a little
stir crazy.
Yeah, a little stir crazy because of what we're doing, and we're so used to just like, getting content, go do another video, and being outside. And we're pretty trapped, we're kind of following the rules. At first, we're like, this is going to be fine because what we're doing is social distancing to the extreme. But then it was no fires, no crown land camping, no parks, and they pretty much shut us down. So, but we're hanging in there. It's okay.
Isn't it funny what we were talking about last night when we were doing the dry run of the show here about how really this is about the time that everybody would start getting out paddling and stuff anyways, right?
Yeah.
The fact that we've been like almost 2 months into this thing already with the government telling us we can't do anything just makes us want to get out there even more, right?
It's true.
It really does. It really does. It's so strange when you can't do it. You want to do it twice as much, and it makes you appreciate kind of what you've lost and that freedom, and that when we do get the chance back to, appreciate it again, that much more, because we're pretty lucky here. I mean, there's some places in the world that never get what we get, right? So, so it's a bit of a wake up call in that respect, but hopefully it happens sooner than later. And, it makes sense. I can see why they don't want someone getting COVID in the Algonquin backcountry or whatever it's going to be, right? So, it's just we just gotta sit tight, I guess. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, and you know what? It's nice to see we're all making progression now, because like they announced there that the provincial parks are open for day use now. It's one tiny step. right? As well as like in our area, we've got conservation areas now. They're slowly starting to open them up again, but they're putting restrictions. But at least we're taking baby steps. So everybody together, thank you. We're starting to nip this thing, right? So.
Woo.
Yeah.
I think that's enough COVID talk. Let's get into you guys. So, Ted, tell us a little bit about yourself. We know the Ted behind Alone, but tell us about Ted.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where my passion started for this stuff is just growing up. My family got us into this. My dad and my grandfather originally bought a piece of Crown land back when they were selling it, and they paddled stuff in and built, with hand tools. They built a cabin, and over time, that's kind of where we grew up. That's where we spent our summers. That's where we were allowed to explore and be free and developed a fascination and a passion for the outdoors. And cheers.
Here's that, y'all. If you got them, crack them.
Cheers.
And we were so lucky to have that. And so we would, I think it's funny. It was relatively recently, I was chatting with my dad, that I think I kind of pinpointed where our extreme fascination, or I don't know, whatever it is with these canoe expeditions came from. He took us down a little river from that area, and we kind of spent a night there, and then came back. And after that, it was an adventure, right? We didn't really know, we didn't really have the maps and all that kind of stuff. And then a few years after, my brother and my two cousins and I tried to do the same route, like all the way to a little town, and it was a total nightmare, right? But that's where it freaking began. I think Jim was maybe like 13 at the time, and we had brought a freighter canoe basically, and enough gas to drive to Hawaii and a little kicker, and we didn't know what we're doing. And so that's where I think that a bit of the passions came from, and just being free up there, allowed to do whatever we want, and fishing and practicing things. We got older, a little practicing bushcraft and primitive traps and all that kind of stuff, and always had this fascination with what it would be like to live off the land or survive or that kind of stuff, and also see what's around the next corner, right? Like, we get into this little lake. Can we get into here? How do we go in there? I wonder if there's fish in this lake, etc. And I think it was Jim that my brother, who first did, a paddle trip. I don't know if it was in Temagami or something. And he kind of got hooked on that. Maybe it was the Temagami River. And then we started doing some, smaller trips. This is as we got older. And then one day Jim came to me and he was like, I got this trip. He's like, the Haughn. He's like, it's in the middle of nowhere. We're going to paddle through the Mackenzie Mountains. And I'm just like, yes, this sounds incredible. And that was the first time I ever paddled any whitewater. We never took any whitewater courses or anything, just read through like Bill Mason's books and stuff like that, and Path of the Paddle, like kind of, reading up on things. And yeah, so that was the first time I paddled any whitewaters on the Nahanni. And like, after that, I was hooked. Like, it's just the most exhilarating adventure. And ever since then, everything is kind of built from there. And that ended up leading to filming and shooting our adventures, and wanting to document it and find ways to try to make money from it, and sponsors and all that kind of stuff. And gave us a bunch of footage, and ended up being the precursor to developing the skills to become incredibly comfortable in the uncomfortable situations that are just extremely difficult and extremely challenging to shoot, and extremely dangerous. And that really, I think, and then a passion for wanting to, what would it be like living off the land kind of thing. Some of the longer trips we've done with, maybe a third of our food has come from fishing and getting some geese, that kind of stuff. And so that sort of segued into Alone, which is weird because we weren't like necessarily pinning ourselves as bushcraft survivalists, right?
Right.
But what we were doing was that, you're talking about hundreds of miles from any road, like way above the Arctic Circle on float plane type trips, where it's actually much more dangerous than on Alone, where there's actually a support team close to you, right? And it doesn't matter what's happening. You have to move forward the next day. That's what you do. If you're not going to get a food drop and your trip is X amount of time, you're not carrying it, you have to catch enough fish. You have to do that. So, and you have to, if something goes wrong, you have to have the skills, hopefully as best you can, to try to, get out of there and survive as best you can. And so that segued into Alone, where you didn't really know who has actually gone out with 10 items and tried to survive as long as they can. Not many people in today's society, but there was a prize, but it was like an inherent something that you want to try. How could I do it? How well would I do? And that was definitely, because it's not a decision you take lightly. When you look at that, if you could be excited, but if you kind of know what you're doing, it should scare the crap out of you. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be easy. So that's kind of where it's come full circle. And now I'm just, pushing into this as hard as I can, and want to make a living out of this, adventure lifestyle. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So you've been together for a long time.
Yeah.
Sorry, we got a bit of echo going here, but you two have been together, and you were saying for some 20 some odd years?
It'll be 20 years in November, yeah.
Okay, yeah. But you've been married for the last 2. So you've seen Ted go through a lot of this growth as an outdoorsman.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Has he always been the outdoorsman he is now?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, he's definitely honed in on his skills and improved over the years. But yeah, he's always just been the adventurous, outdoorsy type. I think that's what I love so much about him. Mm-hmm. But you've always just been down for an adventure, and I've always just been down to follow along on whatever adventure he's on. So it's been fun.
Yeah. And how about yourself? Were you an outdoorsy girl before all of?
Not as much, but I did grow up car camping and fishing with my dad, and just teaching me general outdoor stuff. And I think it was probably about our early 20s when we really started canoe tripping and camping and doing the backcountry stuff. And it just kind of progressed from there.
Yeah. And she got hooked on it too. Like when she came out and got a taste of the adventure.
Yes.
It's funny, we would do some trips, and we've been to like the Caribbean and stuff like that, and then we'd go to a trip up, and we'd say, Heather, which trip did you like more? And she'd be like, she would pick the canoe trip, right? Because it's just so stimulating. A lot of people, it's funny, they like, why would you do that? Why would you work and then go and do all this harder work, right? Mm-hmm. But they're missing the point, right?
It's so rewarding. Like, it's rewarding as you're doing it, but after you complete something, you're like, yeah, I did that. Like, that was awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of people are ready to go home after 7 days or a week. They're bored at that resort, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's not really the case here. So it's something you got to do, right?
Yeah.
So, Ted, are you and your brother, are you guys very competitive being brothers? Typical brothers?
Oh, yeah. Like,
this is a segue, by the way.
Yeah. We definitely are, we find ourselves arguing over little things, but it's good content. I mean, I don't know, because I'm not the producer of Alone or anything, but I think that probably helped us, right? Because that season they were like, we're going to try the family members, right? And it probably helped that we had filmed this stuff and we weren't afraid to show some of the bad sides of it in the arguments.
Right.
And I don't know for sure, but yeah, we were arguing. But I mean, it's kind of funny because when you're brothers with someone and you're close, like me and Jim, it's somehow accepted between two of us that we can act like little children. and like just two grown men running over and punching each other and saying dumb stuff. And we get over it, right?
It's good entertainment.
Right.
I hope Jim's watching this.
Yeah. And like, you would never do that with your friend, right? You might kind of bottle it up and try to be appropriate, but at the end of 75 days of surviving in the freaking hammering rain in the wilderness, you might secretly hate them forever, a little bit part of you, right? But
yeah.
Jim and I managed to kind of get over that. And maybe that's because we're brothers and we accept that we can just like act like kids sometimes and get it out and deal with the issue instead of bottling it up.
Sure. Now, the reason why I asked that question the way I did was because Hieronymy asks here, I've been watching your brother Jim's YouTube videos before alone. He was very active with trips, videos, website. How does it feel to have more subscribers than him? You're rubbing into him, right?
That's funny. He called me or said to me the other day, he was just like, you jerk, or it was whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It's what he's doing is he's putting out. I mean, my plan is to just do what I love doing, right?
I guess Jim's in the house. How you doing, Jim?
My plan is to just put out what I love doing, and that's pretty funny because Jim actually did a video saying that he was coming in. I had a video that had a lot of views, and he was just like, "I'm really happy for Ted," or whatever. It was kind of funny, but I have to owe a lot of credit to Jim for getting me into this and inspiring me to do it, and just having the balls to be like, let's just go paddle this wild mountain river in the abyss. So what if you've never paddled any whitewater? You know what I mean? Like 40-kilometer stretch of rapids. Let's just do it. So it's great to be able to work with him that way. So I don't know. It's fun. I'll take pride in it, Dennis.
That's all right. You can. You earned it. So we'll get into a little more into Alone then. What was the process? Who come up with the idea of wanting to be on Alone, or were you approached as a pair, like as a couple, or like as a duo, or was it one of your ideas to maybe submit for it?
Yeah, so I'd seen it and heard about it, and we'd been talking about it. I think I mentioned to Jim, this new show, and it looked pretty crazy. That was from the first season, and other people had told Jim he should apply. And in the end, Jim submitted it, and he did some great sales work. Instead of just submitting it through like the link, he like managed to freaking, find the casting director's name and just like hammer the phone until she got on the phone and was like, oh, I don't know. We've got a lot of, stuff right now. And he's like, it's in your inbox. Right. And so she watched the video, and the video just happened to include us. And just by out of chance, we didn't know they were casting family members, right? Like the show was Alone. But they were like, we want both of you. And, that year Jim had walked across the Ungava Peninsula and done all this crazy stuff. And when we came back, we didn't really know if it was Alone, because we were like, is this show even greenlit? Is it even happening? This is just a new show. We weren't sure we wanted to sign contracts and stuff. So we initially told them no. And then I thought about it a bit more, and I called Jim back and I was like, you know what, let's do it. And he's like, you know what, Ted, I've just been in the woods for like 100 days already. But he's like, if you want to do it, I'll freaking do it. So I called them back. I'm like, we'll do it. And they're like, that's great. And it wasn't until we flew out and did their boot camp that they said, welcome to season 4 of Alone. And we're like, it is Alone, right? So that's when we knew it was the show. But they're so secretive about stuff, right, that we kind of didn't know and almost bailed. But I've got to give credit for Jim to actually making that initial contact and getting the video in their hands. And, if it wasn't for that, I don't think it would have happened. So,
yeah. In the chat right now, we got, are you familiar with Martin Pine?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so he asked a question. He's trying to start a feud. He says, question for Ted. So which one's the smart one, you or Jim?
Depends who you ask, I guess.
So I just put this in there as a reply.
It's so easy for me to win this because Jim isn't here. But yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, Jim's just sort of like the big ogre that, like, you know, you send in there to smash down the castle wall, and I'm the one at the back coming up with the battle plan. You know, so if that answers your question, you know, Jim's a large lad. You know, he's bigger than me. He's like 6'5", 250, 60 pounds or whatever. So he's a big guy. So you know, we're a good team, right? Like, sometimes I'll often talk him out of things that maybe we shouldn't do, and he'll talk me into things that we should take a risk on. So it's a good balance.
Yeah. Well, obviously you guys got to be a good team because you guys did win the season, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the whole adventure of Alone. So you guys were out there for how many days?
75 days. And
75 days.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole process, now we talked a bit about this last night, but were you at any point close to saying, okay, this is getting ridiculous, let's get the hell out of here?
Yeah.
Happen?
It definitely, I mean, you know, that thought crosses through your mind. Part of it is, you know, it's just pride. You don't want to lose.
Yeah.
And you just don't know. It's almost like when you think you're done, you still have 50% more. And we just kept finding that gas. There was one point where I had, because I have GERD, like acid reflux, and we had saved some of these rations as one of our items for so long that when I ate it was like, you know, a processed thing, and it basically, whatever it did, it flared this up, and it drained my energy to the point where I'd get out and I'd go to get food and stuff, and I just like couldn't do anything. I'm like, maybe this is my wall, because going into it, my plan was there is no tap out button. What would you do to survive if there was no crew and no option to just go home, right? Mm-hmm. And you would do whatever it took, kind of thing. And that's the mental state I tried to get into. And then I was like, you know, I'm going to leave on my shield, kind of thing. And then I'll have no regrets that I didn't give it everything I had. You know, it's like, if I can't walk anymore, well, I know that, you know, whoever beat me with fair and square. I gave it everything. So I thought maybe, which isn't a very good idea, by the way, that I learned. But there came a time when that was happening that I thought maybe this is my wall. And I ended up actually making I basically sat there for 2 days, almost like this, like just splitting, kindling, feeling like I was on heroin or something, like I couldn't really move. And Jim carried the ball for that time and went out and picked like thousands of limpets. Like, you know, we were just eating this garbage, right? And I did make a recovery. And after I felt strong, I cut down this huge tree, and we were going for another 10 days. But I'd say that was the stretch where I was really like, you know what, I don't, if this doesn't get better, if I can't cut wood and I can't get food and I can't, well, then that's the wall for me. So, you know, yeah. I don't know if Jim ever got there. You know, there was times of, you know, where we were just like, this is ridiculous or whatever, but we never really ever came. We would joke about it. Sometimes you'd be exhausted at night, and I'd like have a hoodie, and you're just in this little shelter, and you put the sweater on, and the hood comes on backwards over your face, and I'd be like, I'm tapping out, you know?
Yeah.
That was what did it.
I see a lot of questions coming into chat. If you guys could hold on to them questions for just a little bit, because I want to get through the sequence of the Alone show, and then we could actually ask Ted about a little bit more about his, like, with your questions. So your brother did play the nurturing role, obviously, in that thing there. So he does have some compassion in his blood, right?
Yeah.
Good care of you.
Yeah, he in that time it was yeah, no, it was good. And I mean, in our spot, I'd say that because the nature of our location, it was a very small spot that we had our camp that was like flat. And there was huge old growth trees. There wasn't any driftwood for firewood. So all our firewood came from standing dead. And a lot of it being the rainforest, a lot of the standing dead was still just soaked through. So we would go for yew or cedar, and the yew burned longer. And, we were kind of in almost like a minnow sanctuary, the spot. Like, it was very shallow, it was like a spawning area. And because of that, when it got cold, our fishing really dried up really quickly. And so it was a huge amount of labor to get wood and food, because a lot of the food we got from, one Jim would fish maybe, and I would turn over these boulders, and like you turn over 100-pound boulders and nothing and nothing and nothing. And you're kind of blacking out as you're doing this. And then you would, find whatever was under them and stomp on them. And, it was exhausting. But I think in our location, being a team ended up being pretty key to success. Whereas the guys that came in second, I know the dad, just out of luck, his son's a fisheries biologist, amazing fisherman, but for whatever reason, he caught one fish and his dad caught 87. So if his dad was there by himself, if he could have held on, he wouldn't have split the food, and maybe he would have outlasted us. It's hard to say. It doesn't necessarily make it better having two, but I think for us it did,
Yeah, I know the son, I can't remember his name, but he beat himself up over that, knowing he was a fisheries guy and he couldn't catch him and his dad was outperforming, right? So
yeah. I think it was his orange raincoat he had on. The fish could see him. His dad had a black one on.
Spooked him out, eh?
Yeah.
So at the beginning of the show, they take you guys and they drop you off in different spots. They drop you off close to where your camp is. They drop Jim off on the other side of the island, or whatever. And how did you guys determine who's going to do what role? Like who is going to be the homemaker and who is going to be the guy to go through all the torture? Like, Jim volunteering or?
Well, it was kind of an easy decision for us. That was sprung on us late in the game. They were kind of like, how do you feel about being separated and fighting each other? So we talked it through, but because Jim had a lot more recent experience and was just frankly in better shape for that at the time, it was sort of an easy decision for that. That was not an easy hike. And I think that was a very smart, calculated decision because he had just crossed the Ungava Peninsula from Hudson Strait to Hudson's Bay, self-supported through 100 blizzards, and just like way more dangerous and physically harder than Alone in that respect. So it only made sense for him, having done that to do the hike, right? He was just in better physical shape than me. So that was kind of an easy thing to do. He was willing to do it. I would have done it, but it probably wouldn't have been a good decision to do that. So that's how we made it. And he made it in 8 days. He had to cross something like 6 lakes or go around a huge amount of lakes. He'd stop and fish, didn't get any food. He would just eat as he went along the way, foraging mushrooms and whatever he could eat. And it sounds like not that much because it was 10 miles, I believe. And it took him 8 days. And you're like, oh, geez, I could run there for coffee in the morning. But to put it in perspective, him and Tori's wife did a Jasper and Wilmore Wilderness, a very untraveled route after the summer, after winning Alone, 100 miles in 8 days, which was an extremely rugged journey. But yet this one was 10 miles. That's how freaking hard it is to travel through the rainforest there. It's tough. But anyway, that's how we made the decision. And I stayed back and put together our ramshackled, terrible shelter that we got.
On to the next question. So, yeah, I know you did take a lot of flack, or you guys as a team took a lot of flack about the basically a tarp shelter. It was open all the way around. You guys had your fire there. Like, you look at some of the others, like the Whipples had, he's building a bloody log cabin out there and stuff. And here's Ted and Jim sleeping under a tarp. What was the reasoning behind having such a simple tarp shelter?
It's when it comes to survival, usually, you just want to get, dry, out of the wind, get off the ground. We had a raised platform. I don't know if you could see it. We built it up and with boughs and stuff, but it could have blocked the wind a little better. But those are the main things. And so our strategy was, we're not gonna die in this shelter. Our feet would get freezing, and we put honey rocks in there, like heat them up in the fire and put them in our sleeping bags, which saved us. But we're like, it's good enough. And really what it's going to come down to long term is procurement of food. So we're going to put our energy into things they didn't necessarily work out great, but that might get us food. So, we built a boat and a crab trap and these kinds of things. And if those were a success and we filled the boat with fish, and then we'd have more time and to build ourselves a log cabin or whatever, what have you. And so that was the thinking behind it. We also we used one of the tarps as an item for our boat. So our footprint was much smaller. And then also our location, we had just huge, like old growth trees. So to get all the nice little building materials that would be ideal for a nice shelter, we're too much of an expenditure physically to make that calculated decision that it's not worth it. We'll just stay in that. So that was our thinking. And I guess it kind of paid out. If you're in a survival situation, you make something that's good enough, right? You don't build yourself a castle one night, right? So anyway.
Yeah, and great boat, by the way, that you built there. You spent a lot of effort on that, though.
Yeah, way more than the shelter, right? And I wanted it to fit 2 people, and we only had a 12 by 12 tarp, so it was pretty hard. You used it on the diagonal, so that we could get a little more distance out of it. I think it was better than it needed to be in hindsight, but there's quite strong and big tides there and quite strong currents. And when you start getting weak, you don't want your boat to break apart, of course, right? And but it made it very heavy. And the challenge with our boat was where we had to put in, there's just barnacles like this big, just that literally you could shave with. So and you put the boat in the water and you can't step with your bare feet because you'll gash your feet. But if you step, it's really deep and your boots will fill with water. And so and just even the littlest wave just pushes this heavy boat, and the barnacles just start cutting the tarp.
Right.
So that was quite a challenge. And, it was what it was. And so unfortunately, our boat wasn't a success other than to deliver our crab trap out of reach, so.
Yeah.
That was sad.
So for Heather then, when you're watching the episodes back, right? Okay, you've gone to get Ted, come back home. Now the season starts. You're watching. At any point were you shaking your head or get really emotional over seeing what the boys had to go through while they're out there?
Definitely, it was definitely hard watching them as they're dwindling and the weight's coming off and they're getting skinnier, and it's definitely hard to watch. But it was also really fun to watch. It was like, wow, that's how you did it. Wow, that's how you built that boat. And that's how you got your meal for the night. And, you hear the stories, but it's a totally different thing reliving it and seeing the footage. So it was really
has Ted offered to cook you a nice fish fry of gunnelfish at all? Or?
Oh, gosh, I would never want one.
Tell us about the gunnelfish.
Well, you had a bag of them when we showed up, right?
That's right. And the girls were like, look at what we've been eating. And we dumped it out.
Dumped it out at our feet, and we were Tori and I were just disgusted.
My own wife was one. Like my wife and I watch Alone all the time together, right? And she's seen that there, and she go, "Oh my God, they're eating that!" And she likes sushi, right?
Right. It didn't look edible. These things didn't. They look like rubber eels.
Yeah, they were. They were like aliens. They were some sort of alien creature. Yeah, the guy, I think it was Dave. Yeah, Dave that won season 2 explained. He was like, I ate some of that stuff, guys, but you guys ate it on an industrial scale, and
it's like all you ate.
That's how we pulled it off because that's what we had to do. And he's sort of saying that survival is and this is how he explained it. He's like, survival is having a plan for what you're going to do and catch, and then not catching any of it and coming home and eating your bait. And that's how it was for us a lot of the times. And that bait ended up being limpets and gunnelfish. And gunnelfish, at least they're still fish. I'll say that. They're better than limpets and these little chitons or whatever. Or people call them gumshoes. They look like little mini armadillos, and they're just, it's kind of like eating bouncy balls, like lots of protein, meat, but no fat. And the gunnelfish are just these writhing, like, freaking, you flip over a boulder and they'll just, sometimes there's one, but sometimes there's multiple ones, and they're just like it looks like, you know, and it almost scares you seeing them too.
Like
And
the tentacle to see in one of them sci-fi movies of like a little baby alien, right? Yeah.
exactly, because it's also the ocean, and it's just like there's just everything and anything in there, and then you're just like, but then you get excited and you start trying to kill them because they get away very easily, and so you start stomping and stabbing them with your knife, and it's this whole ordeal. And if you get one in your hand, Jim actually caught one. It was like Ozzy Osbourne biting off a bat's head. He couldn't kill it, and he bit its head to kill it at one point. And because if you hold them in your hand, like if you hold them in your hand, they kind of can't get anywhere too quick. But the tighter you squeeze them, they're very strong, and the more, you know, traction they have, so to speak. And so you can't really hold them. They're just like, whoop, and get away. But they can live in the salt water, and they can live in the fresh water that was coming out in the creek, and they can live with no water as long as they're moist. I don't know what the hell these things are. And we would clean them and store them. Jim came up with a good idea of using our gaiters, which items we were allowed to have. And we didn't use them as gaiters. We just tied the bottom and used them as bags, basically, right? So we storage and put stuff in. And so we'd have food reserves, you know, and always try to have food in reserve, because if the tide was out, food was in. But on days when the tide didn't go out much, it was harder to get food those days, and you couldn't access our fishing spots. So these gunnelfish would be in there sometimes for 2 days or whatever, and you'd put them in the pot, and as soon as it started boiling, they'd writhe up with no heads and boot the lid off and come flying out of the pot like this. Like they were something else, you know. So, but again, they were fish, and the sad part is they were one of the better things that we would eat for that reason, just because they had fat in them. And so
and they tasted how did you describe that?
They're
bouncy balls?
No. That those are the limpets.
The limpets,
the
right.
gunnelfish are kind of sour. They have a sour taste, but it's still fish. And when you're out there, you know, things obviously start tasting better. The best thing we had was duck and fish and crabs. They didn't show a bunch of stuff, but we caught a large amount of bigger red rock crabs and kelp crabs, and we had some pretty epic. The day that we thought was my birthday, we had a pretty good day. Somehow we'd lost track, and we were like 10 days off. We counted. We had the right amount of days, but we thought the day we won, we thought it was like, I don't know, Boxing, or the day after Boxing Day.
New Year's had hit yet, but it was already after New Year's.
Yeah, it was already like January 6th, and we were like, it's December 29th or something, or whatever.
Yeah, I forgot that one over Christmas. Wow.
Yeah.
We were out
That
there.
had to be hard not having them home for Christmas, right?
It was.
Yeah.
He missed, like Halloween, his birthday, our anniversary, Christmas, New Year.
Martin's asking to Heather, did you have any status updates or information from the show's producers about Ted and Jim?
No, we didn't. No, we had no idea. So we were kept in the dark. I was actually at work, at my old work, sitting at my desk when the call came in. And, just the way they worded it, I wasn't quite sure. They were kind of like, they're one of the last ones out there. And I'm like, okay, like one of the last ones. And I'm like, wait a minute, like they won? And the woman on the phone was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God, they won. And everyone around me is looking, and it's supposed to be really hush hush and kept everything quiet. And I'm like, never mind, nothing to hear here. But it was a pretty exciting phone call, to say the least.
Yeah, thanks for the great segue there, Martin, because that we discussed last night that I wanted to ask Heather about this whole episode from her end, because she mentioned that she was in her own version of Alone, because she was Alone Home Edition. But through this whole thing, and then you do get the phone call while you're at work, and then you and Tori have to jump on a couple of planes, trains, and automobiles to make your way. What's your thought process through this whole thing? Because you're doing this, and there's still 2 days more that Ted and Jim have to survive on alone, not even knowing they've won yet.
Correct. I think my initial thought was just get them out of there, like just get them out, take them somewhere, feed them, like, make them, just get them out of there basically. But they were like, oh no, this is the show. So yeah, we had to take a number of planes and boats out there. And, of course, as soon as we get the call, Tori and I are on the phone to each other like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And yeah, it was super exciting. It was a long process to get out there to them, of course. It was about 2 days extra they had to survive on the island. But yeah.
And I went online and I found this really neat picture, and it's too bad that Tori wasn't in it as well. But
oh yeah,
here's the two Grizzly Adams right here, and Heather in the background. And, you know what? This is the part of the show that, and you know what? I don't care. I'm a guy, but you know what? I always put a lump in my throat, a tear in my eye, because it's like that episode of Survivor, when they bring all the family members on. I'm an emotional guy when it comes to family, right?
Right.
And to see you guys, you two ladies sneaking up on the boys, right? And they turn around and their expressions. And didn't one of you drop to your knees? Or am I thinking of a different?
I jumped into your arms.
She jumped into my arms and like picked her up. And no, I don't think we fell.
Okay, it might have been a different season, but yeah, it was.
It was really definitely emotional for sure.
Oh, yeah,
I was trying to play it cool at first, but the moment they said, do what you want, either sneak up on them or grab them or yell or do whatever. And they were mid-interview, which was a distraction for us to sneak up. And the first thing I thought was, hi.
Yeah.
And that was it. And they turned around, and we all, I think, forgot that it was a show at that point and that there were cameras and camera crew there, and the tears just came out and I just exploded, and it was just this joyous, so many emotions all at once, right?
Yeah.
But it was a happy moment for sure.
It was so amazing, and for me it was just such a release, because there was a few tells that it might be happening,
right.
But I wouldn't let myself go there, because there was other times where there was a med check or whatever. So you start thinking maybe this is it, maybe we won, maybe whatever, right? And it's an emotional crash if they're like, all right, see you later. Basically you're still healthy, because they have to check that you're not dying or whatever. And so I wouldn't let myself go there. So then when it did happen, it was just amazing release, so
I thought
surreal.
You'd hear us sneaking up, because branches are snapping and it's our rain pants are rubbing together and we're trying to sneak up, but you guys were just kind of in your own little world at the time. And yeah,
I always wondered that about them shows too. How do you sneak up so easily? But I would think that maybe, the guys are thinking, there's we got the med check guys walking around there snapping the twigs behind me type of thing, right?
Right.
Yeah, and that's the reality, is they have, there's the med check guys there. And also I don't know about other seasons, but our spot, we're right on the freaking ocean, and there's just always, we're in the Pacific, there's always wind blowing in the trees and waves crashing around, and it's easy to sneak up on someone there, really, if you want to. So especially if you're engaged in something else or have those distractions. So yeah.
So I have to ask, Ted, would you do it again?
Yeah, totally. Because I say that because I would, but leading up to it, I'd obviously have to give it more consideration and make that decision. There's some things that, I'd be concerned about, but at the same time, I feel like even though we won, there's stuff I left on the table, because ideally, if you go out there, you want to thrive, right? It's hard, and your circumstances dictate a lot of what's possible, but there are some mistakes that we made that maybe if we hadn't, things would have been different. And so it's just like anything. If you want to get better at it, I learned a lot from it, and things I was naive to as well, just the kind of food that you need and how much you need and the fat you need, and you can't survive long term off certain types of food. It doesn't matter how much you're eating. And also just how far I can push myself, and basically I'm not sure how that would play out a second time. If like I would clue into like maybe I shouldn't go much longer, or if it would allow me to go further. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I feel like I left stuff on the table, Dennis, and so I would do it again, but it would not be. It's not an easy decision, right?
Yeah.
I'd say yes.
So how much more can you leave on the table? You won the show. Now, Heather, I got to play devil's advocate here. Heather, would you let him do it again?
Oh, absolutely, definitely. It would be tough for sure, but I think if there was another time around, I guess we'd know a little bit more of what we were getting ourselves into, and especially what you were getting yourself into.
Right. Yeah. That is a hard part is leaving and not knowing when it's going to end and how long, and when you're coming back, you can't talk at all. And it is. And then at a certain point towards the end, you've kind of given up hope on thriving. And now you are just holding on to be like, okay, well, let's win this freaking thing now. You know what I mean? It would be crazy to just, to leave now if you don't have to. And so it becomes a bit like Groundhog Day in that respect. But you still have it's incredible. Sometimes you thought you have nothing left and you turn over a rock and there's tons of gunnelfish, and all of a sudden you're like Hercules again because your body has this adrenaline rush. So quite the experience.
So now through this whole experience, obviously you go down before the show starts. You go through like a little training period or adaptation period, and you're with some of the other contestants. Like, have you bonded with any of the other contestants? Like, I know you and the four of you went down and seen Dave and Brooke Whipples, right, who were contestants, and they did quite well.
Mm-hmm.
But have you bonded with other people that were on the show at the time that you guys were on?
I'd say for sure. I mean, a lot of us sort of keep in touch online. We live all over the place. But I'd say there is a connection there that, that you have you're all like-minded people. When you meet up before you launch, you all have stories to tell and you're all interested in your own geeky outdoor stories, right? Because they actually want to hear them. And so that's a fun environment. And then you've also kind of gone through this traumatic experience that nobody else can really relate to in that respect. So I'm sure we've bonded on that level to a certain extent. I think that is sort of a general thing that happens with the contestants there. I don't know about, I'm not super close to everyone, of course, but some people like Brooke and Dave, I think we developed a friendship quite quickly that you wouldn't necessarily do with somebody in the same, in that tight of space, because we saw them for 10 days and then we didn't see them again until the reunion episode when we're in New York. And that was the last time we freaking saw them, right? Like that was it. And until we went up and visited their place in Michigan, right? So
that's cool.
They're awesome. They're so fun.
Yeah.
They seem like down-to-earth people. And one last question here from the chat right now. Tina Dush is asking, what souvenirs were you allowed to keep from your time on Alone? Any?
Yeah, we brought back pretty much everything except for our boat, which was just too big. But we've talked about, maybe we could go back and put a tarp on that and paddle it out. But we brought back the paddles that we made. Jim pretty much made those. And we brought those back. And we brought back, just all the little like things that we kind of used were things that we brought home with us. And so there wasn't a ton of stuff. Guys on other seasons made like 1,000 spoons and stuff. That wasn't really us. So there isn't a ton of stuff, but we do have those little knickknacks. They let us take it all.
Cool. That's all right. And those are the ultimate souvenirs, right? Yeah, you get the payout and everything, but yeah, when you got those things, you spend the money, but you can look back on the souvenirs, right? It's like a trophy case.
Yeah, we would like to. Apparently, there's a guy that helped out with it down there, and he says our boat is still just sitting on shore like the skeleton. It's just up there.
Really?
Yeah. So he passes by there, and it's still there. So me and Jim have talked about a couple times. We're like, wouldn't it be cool to just go out and paddle that out of there? Because of course that's part of what you would do if your boat had been marooned or a plane crashed. You would try to leave, right? So it'd be cool to see if indeed we could paddle away. And I mean, because that's what we are at heart, right? We're canoeists, right? So,
yeah. So even from the same person, Tina's asking there again, what effect did this have on your body? How long did it take you to recover from the show? Because you guys you're both big boys. I met Jim personally at the Winter Camping Symposium, and seeing you stand beside him, like in videos and pictures and stuff. You guys are both strapping young men, right? So you guys, got to eat a ton, right? and to eat what you guys did eat out there, but you both lost a significant amount of weight.
Yeah, so we and that's part of it. We had a 2-pot minimum. They didn't show how much we ate, but we would eat 2 1 liter pots a day, every day, quite a significant amount. If it's the right amount of food, we would have gained weight. But over time, it wasn't sustaining us. So I lost 48 pounds. Jim lost, 60 something pounds, basically 25% of our body weight. A crazy amount of weight, and it did take a toll on us. And that's part of what you learn. You didn't realize how far you had pushed yourself when you're in that mindset. You kind of don't let yourself go to these other things. You protect yourself from negative thoughts. And it definitely took a toll. We also didn't really refeed ourselves in the proper way. Coming back, when I got back home, I started eating cinnamon buns and crap like that, right? Like, you should put good things back in your body. But I don't know an exact timeline as to how long it took, but I remember that summer we went out and paddled the Magnetawan, the lower Magnetawan, and I just felt weak and had like arthritic pains and stuff that weren't really there. And then another month would go past, and I was doing some work, building something, and I'd start thinking, I'm better now, I'm stronger now, and then I'd do something and I'd be like, no, I'm not, right? And the next month I'd be like, I'm stronger than I was again. So it took a long time to answer the question. It took months of time, and that's one thing you learn about this is, like, you can't just eat it, roll through the drive-through and be back to where you are when you launched. It takes a long time to get back, and it's legit. This show is you shoot it all yourself, and it is the real deal. Like, it is harsh, and that's often the reality of survival. And I don't know, 6 months, something like that, at least, to be back in full swing.
We're at almost 8 o'clock, which is about the time that I like to do my giveaways. But everybody in the chat, stick around, because there's so much. This could turn out to be a 3 or 4 hour show if we wanted to, because it's a very interesting topic, and there's a lot of stuff I want to talk to or ask you guys, even aside from alone, because you do have a successful YouTube channel. Heather's a great part of that, from what I can see, from what I've watched. I'd like to get into a little bit about your adventures together. You guys, okay, so you come back from alone, and Heather, what did Ted do? He put the ring on his finger?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing that the 4 of us wanted to do is we wanted to paddle the Mountain River in Northwest Territories. So that was kind of the reward that the guys kind of gave themselves. With their winnings. Ted and I had dreamed of paddling that river for years. We had researched it, and it was just a little bit of a pipe dream, maybe it'll happen kind of thing. But we actually made it happen, and he proposed on the river, which was awesome. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet. I mean, that was Heather's first extreme wilderness, remote fly-in wilderness trip. Right. And we'd been, like she said, talking about it for years. And that was one of the things that helped me and Jim win is, when we're going to win this, we're going to paddle the Mountain River. Right. And it's funny how things work out. You know what I mean? You think about something hard enough for long enough, sometimes somehow it just works itself out. And next thing you know, you find yourself there. And then in the end, I'm proposing to Heather there beside this canyon that was like just one of the nicest places I've ever been, in a tufa spring that they call the Fountain of Youth. And
It really was something out of a fairy tale. Like you describe it and it just seems unreal.
Yeah.
I think right after we went back with Jim and Tori and kind of cheered with our spiced rum and our camp mugs and had a fire. And like 2 minutes later, we look behind us and there's just this giant double rainbow out over the mountains. And we just got this like epic picture. And it was just an unreal story, really.
Was it on that trip that he proposed to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's where it did it. And in the Northwest Territories. On that was we flew into Norman Wells and then we took a bush plane out and landed on floats out in like Willow Handle Lake and paddled down Blackfeather Creek to the Mountain River. And man, is that ever an adventure. Like that river is something. If
anyone's looking into Wilderness River or doing a river in Northwest Territories, I highly recommend it. It has everything. It has wildlife. It has just unreal views, white water. It has everything.
Thanks. Another one for the bucket list.
Yes. I think we said to ourselves every night we camped, we said, this is the nicest campsite. Like, this is the nicest one. And then the next day we'd say, no, this is the nicest one. Like, look at this. We have a double rainbow. Look at this view. Yeah. And it just kept getting better every night.
It really did. Cool. And sometimes the current is clipping along at 25 kilometers an hour. So you'd be like, oh, it doesn't get dark. So nice.
You
so
just paddle to like 9 o'clock at night. Set up camp and
you break camp and you can still get on the water late and just fly to the next camp. Like it
was nice because you didn't have. I mean, you were on a timeline, but you didn't have to feel so rushed. Right. You didn't have the dark hitting and closing the door or anything. Like you could just paddle forever.
No portaging. One portage. Dennis.
One.
Really?
That's where I was like, I'm in. Sign me up.
No bugs.
So. I got this picture that was sent to me that I could have used as a thumbnail, but it was a little unfocused. So I chose the thumbnail. Ended up choosing that as the thumbnail, right? But who wants to explain that picture to me?
Look at our faces. Oh my God.
Look at my face. I look like I'm one of those skydivers with the wind blowing all over the place.
Look at that low brace.
Yeah, Heather's low braces. What am I doing back there? I just look like a pile of mush.
Was that on that trip?
No, both of us snapped our paddles right then and there. That was the Black River in Hastings County, Ontario.
Yeah. So that was before the Mountain River. That was
almost 10 years ago, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
That's a while back.
So it's that river is it's an early spring run. Typically mostly run by kayakers and playboaters and stuff like that. I think it was April 30th or something when we're in there. So there's still snow. And I was panicking because I paddled some whitewater with Heather and she was pretty good. But this river was starting to seem a little advanced. So I was like terrified. And you went out and you got a dry suit.
I got a dry suit the day before leaving on the trip. We were going to just go with the wetsuits. And I was like, let's do it. I've been wanting to make this purchase for a while. Let's just get it. Be safe. It was when we there was snow and ice on the banks.
Yeah, it was April.
Yeah, early.
So I think late April.
Yeah. So we were at home and Ted was online just Googling water levels and just seemed really, really stressed out. And I was like, Ted, this isn't making me feel too good. You're not making me feel too comfortable. But I was like, it's going to be fine, hon. It's going to be fine. We're going to get out there. It's going to be fun. Uh-huh. And we start driving up there and it turns out everything's in flood and we're seeing all these lakes and rivers and Ted's just freaking out.
Yeah. I was terrified. I'm like, I'm going to take Heather out there and kill her. Or worse, she's going to end up hating canoeing, right?
Right.
Worse.
Just kidding. But yeah, so I was a nervous wreck, and so we went out there. But we dumped twice, and that one we broke both our paddles on that dump in half.
That was the first time I had ever dumped was in that photo. And it kind of, it counts, but it kind of doesn't. I actually fell out onto a rock onto shore. So I didn't actually wash down the river. Ted washed down the river with the boat. I fell out onto shore. bashed my arm up pretty good. And I think it was once we finally, we camped actually not too far from where we dumped. And once we got out and took our dry suits off, I realized that I had just completely bloodied my new dry suit, and it was just filled with blood and my elbow was bleeding. But, I was okay. We actually had a good laugh about it. So.
Yeah, she toughed it out. She was nails. And it's funny because you had a helmet, and before it was just like, and we're just like, and didn't pull it out.
That's right.
And then we were like, yeah.
Every run after that, I wore the helmet because that elbow could have been my head.
Right.
But no, it was, it's the story of anxiety and adventure.
For sure. I had a lot of anxiety. Taking her out, but she nailed it. And, that's how you learn. And we went with my brother and my friend, this guy Ari, who's done a lot of trips with us in the past, and so we had a good team there. And it
was a lot of fun. I have a little battle scar as a souvenir, and
right,
we have that great photo.
Wow.
Yeah, Jim got that picture.
One more question here, and then we're going to do our giveaway after this. Because we got somebody I seen in the basement there. So aside from Alone, what would you say is your most challenging trip you've done?
Probably the most challenging one is from Schefferville in Quebec to Hopedale, Labrador. And we've done some other ones, but that one was the most challenging. You just had black flies as thick as clouds. You're going upriver, downriver, portaging just untraveled routes, and it was very arduous. And so that was the one. We started in Schefferville, Quebec. We paddled across, put in at Lake Iron Arm, Lake Atikomegan, down into the headwaters, down the DePaul, up over the Highland into the George River, up the George River for a section, and then again over the Highland into Lac, whatever, Gorlandez it was called, the Chapeteau, and then down what's the Adlatok River is what it's called now, and to the coast on the Atlantic, and then paddled up to Hopedale, Labrador. And that trip was something for the books. It wasn't the longest in distance, but let me tell you, it was a freaking challenge. And but it was also one of the best trips ever of all time. And something about that, you start in this swampy, boggy kind of area, and you end up, and there's literally in Inuit country where there's like no trees and just caribou moss, and it's wild country out there. It's similar to Ontario. In the rivers are very technical and boulder ridden and dangerous. I a couple times, twice, the guy I was paddling with, we just cheated disaster when we ran, because the rapids there are so long you can't possibly scout them, and even if you did, you wouldn't remember. So you have to kind of just bounce down and catch eddies and try to play it safe. And we got caught a couple of times where in a strong class 3 got basically pushed up sideways on a big rock. But I guess we were just past center, and a little wave kind of pushed us up and down and around. And we said we were just saved by the hand of God, basically is what it felt like, because the canoe would have just been obliterated. And so that would be the hardest trip.
Yeah. Here's a familiar face. Camper Christina's asking, would you say the trip is comparable to Alone, just as harder, considering you had no help or were really alone?
I'd say, okay, so physically, in the sense of like physical demand, it's harder, right? Like endurance and muscular, and much harder to film than Alone, because Alone you're in one spot and you walk around with your camera. But Alone was hands down harder, because Alone is you're just like
suffering.
Yeah, like it's a suffer fest, because you're putting these calories in your body, and it's like you have a full stomach, but it's like it would almost be you're still kind of starving slowly, because we had rabbit starvation, right? We didn't have enough fat for our bodies to digest the protein, and you start feeling like, you sit down and your mind is like, oh, I'm gonna, thinks like you're a young person, and you're like, I'm gonna do this, and we're gonna get the boat back in, we're gonna paddle, and then you start moving, and you're like, your body's like, nope, you're 150 years old. It's kind of how you start feeling. So alone was definitely harder, but it's hard to compare. It's hard to compare. But if it wasn't for, say, that trip and the trips that I've done, I do not think we could have done alone.
Yeah, but it's like one trip is go, 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 and the other one is conserve, 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 right?
Right.
Mhm.
But it hardens you, right? Like you don't, after you do a trip like that Labrador trip, like you don't care that it's raining anymore. The ice rain, it's like you start having fun. Like it's like a sick excitement. Like, you feel more alive, and you stop caring about the bugs, and you become comfortable in the uncomfortable. You realize what's actually dangerous when you're actually going to get hypothermia, or you're just kind of being a wimp. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not that you're actually being a wimp, because it's legit, but we got caught in the tail end of a hurricane on that trip. It pissed rain all day, just like ice rain. Like the weather there is never good. And when it gets a little good, the black flies just crawl like 40 on your eyeballs. And we finally setting up camp, and now the hurricane is coming in, and it's just pissing rain. And so we bring a little 151 with us, because it kind of doubles the weight. And so we drink that. We call it's medicinal, right? When morale is really low.
Morale booster, for sure.
When morale is low, we have to open the first aid kit, and everybody has a little, because it warms you up. You stop caring as less. And Jim's lighting a fire. He's trying to get a fire going on this tarp, and it's just hammering rain. And Jim's like, Marty, our one buddy's like, this is great practice for when you really need it in an emergency situation. He's like, this isn't practice, Jim. This is the real thing.
Oh man!
But yeah,
I can see that too. Yeah,
that was an intense trip. I'm not sure that's a Heather trip, but
yeah.
Okay, guys. So we're at 10 after 8. I'm just going to we'll get into doing my little bit of a swag giveaway, and then we'll get into more. There's more stuff I want to touch on too, like your YouTube channel. And some of your skills that you're showcasing on there with all your shelter builds and stuff like that. I'm going to put myself full screen. If you guys need to get yourself a new beverage or potty break or something like that, feel free. And then we've got a couple of guests that'll be joining us. One should be ready to go on anytime. Nate, if you want to pop on into the green room. And then we're also going to have Karina and Ryan are supposed to show up from Alexis Outdoors a little later, because you guys have had some interactions with collaborations and stuff like that of late.
Yeah.
So we'll get them on. Hopefully we'll close up the show like that. But I'm going to go full screen. Like I say, if you guys need to take a quick little break, feel free to do so. And I'll be with you guys in a minute.
cool.
Hey, buddy.
All righty. So, guys, as I mentioned, it's time to give away a bit of swag. Hopefully everybody is enjoying the show tonight. Ted and Heather are awesome. Hopefully they can get Bella on screen too. Bella's really cool. You say her name on screen and she looks at the screen, right? So she's very attentive when it comes to that there. So it's time to give away some Canoehound Adventures sticker packs. Like I say, these are made possible through any support that I'm getting on the channel from people that are subscribing, super chats and stuff like that. Not necessary, but it does help the channel. Anyways, we've got 3 that we're going to give away this week. And the question that I have for you this week, and if you're listening earlier and paying attention, you would know this answer. The first 3 people that put the answer in correct will win these. If you've won within the last couple of weeks, give the other people a chance, would you? So how long did Ted and Jim survive on alone? How many days were they out there? So like I say, the first 3 people that I see on my chat here will be the winners. So let's see. I'm going to keep an eye on that. Anyways, just while I'm waiting for some answers to come in there, I just wanted to remind you that next week on the show, that would be May the 19th, I believe, we have Stephen Coutts, and we're going to be learning about canoe poling. And then we have a special edition show on Friday, May the 22nd. Not this Friday, but the following Friday. We're going to have Chris Prose, Matthew Haughn, and Ben Stacey on the show. And we're going to be talking about how to shoot videos in the backcountry and how to edit. And we'll be talking about camera gear. So if you're aspiring YouTuber or you want to brush up on your skills, by all means, tune into that show because all three of them are in the industry and they know a lot about this stuff. So make sure you tune in for that. All right. So I see we've got the correct answer. The correct answer to the question I asked was 75 days. And let me just put my email address up here on screen right here. So these following people, the first three, Luke N., Luke Morrison, and Paddle Partners are the first three that correctly answered 75. So if you guys can send me your full mailing addresses to canoehound@gmail.com, I will get your prize packs out to you within the next couple of days, and you could proudly don those things on your water bottles or anything like that there, you know. And if anybody ever needs some of these stickers, give me a call. I'm in the business and I could print you these things. So that's all cool stuff too. So that's awesome. So once again, we have Luke N., Luke Morrison. Hopefully you're not the same person. And Paddle Partners. Send me your mailing addresses and we'll get those things out to you as soon as possible. There we go. And let's see here. We'll get back into the show now. I'm going to bring Ted and Heather back up. Right. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Brush the hair back. All good. And let's see here if we can get them here. There we go. They're back. How you doing, guys?
Good.
And I'm going to get rid of the address. So hopefully they got that canoehound@gmail.com. And I'm also going to welcome to the stream right now a familiar face that's been on the show many, many times. He's familiar with Ted and Heather, of course. This is Nate Muskoka. How you doing?
Hey, buddy.
Hey, Nate.
How's it going?
What's up, Nate?
How are you guys doing?
We're good.
Good.
Okay.
So your volume's a little low, so you may have to speak up a little bit there, Nate, so we can hear you clearly.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah. So how's things going down there in the Muskoka area?
Good. No, sorry, not good. It snowed today again. So we're just kind of getting past that and looking at the forecast for the weekend.
Cool. Okay, everybody. Also up there on Ted's lap, we got Bella. Watch Bella. Bella. Hey, Bella. Hey, how you doing, Bella? I love that. What? Okay, yeah, I'm entertained too. Okay. Oh, so Nate, you've been out. I've seen you've been out and about doing a little bit of paddling up in your area.
Yeah, a little bit of careful, cautious paddling in my immediate vicinity. Yeah, it's been great actually.
It looks gorgeous. We're jealous.
Yeah.
Well, soon enough for you guys, I hope.
Yes.
Really soon. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
We're dying to get out.
So how are you guys all familiar with each other? I know you guys have seen a video that you were in with them, Nate, up at the cottage.
Yeah.
Well, Nate and I matched on Tinder.
There we go.
3. Well, I guess we started chatting through Instagram and social and stuff like that, right? And then we planned that big winter trip we did, winter slog to the cabin.
Yeah, that's right. And that was the first time we met and did the backcountry pond hockey and just had a great all around all Canadian experience.
Yeah.
And have since just kept in touch and maybe gonna get up to some more shenanigans hopefully in the near future.
Definitely.
But, yeah, it's cool. That's one thing I love about social media. As much as time as it takes up and seems whatever, it allows us to connect with like-minded people that you otherwise wouldn't be able to meet. And so
definitely,
I'd say Nate's one of those guys.
Yeah.
Cheers to that, buddy.
Yeah. Cheers to that. Absolutely. I was just gonna say this is a great example of how social media can bring people together in common interests and yeah, just meeting up with them for the first time this past winter was awesome. And and definitely had a lot to kind of chat about and lots in common. And yeah, hopefully we can do a little paddling sooner rather than later altogether. It'd be great.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. So Nate, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. If you want, I'm paying you a visit during the summertime once things get going again.
Yeah, so I live in Huntsville. I mostly hang out on Instagram at Muskoka. I love paddling, and in the summer you can find me most of the time at Algonquin Outfitters in Huntsville, where I'm the store manager, and that keeps me super busy and away from really long summertime canoe trips, unfortunately. So I try to make the most of some shoulder season paddling and quick overnighters here and there.
Cool. Very good.
Also a Crown Land enthusiast, much like Ted and Heather.
Yeah. I too am more of a Crown Land type of person. Is that the same for you guys, Ted?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely don't shy away from parks are wonderful, but yeah, I'd say most of the time we're out there, we're not paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the vast majority of our hours in the backcountry have been free, so to speak.
Not that it's about that, but we just like to, get away from the crowds as much as we can and enjoy the peacefulness of nature.
Yeah, it hasn't been. Yeah, you're right. It wasn't distinctly to save the money, but it's also the Crown Land. I mean, Pine Martin is Crown Land guy, and there you get, just like Heather said, you get away from the crowds, and a lot of the time, if you're just like, say it's peak summer, and you're like, we want to go into a lake, like trying to get where you want to go in, say, Algonquin or something like that, it's going to be challenging, right? But Crown Land, you're pretty much gold. Like there's a lot of options, and you can get in somewhere.
Something nice about picking your own campsite too, right? And not going to a groomed site. I mean, that's nice too, but it adds to the adventure.
I enjoy the seclusion of Crown Land camping as well. That's one of the reasons why I do get away. Being a business owner, I deal with people on a daily basis. Most of it good, sometimes not so good, right? But I go to get away from that stuff, right? And having to fight over a campsite or something like that, or trying to find a campsite, is tough.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're also on your own schedule. I mean, technically up to 21 days, but the fact that you don't, if you find a great spot and you've got the time, hey, hang out, enjoy it. And I think that's what I love the most, is that no reservation requires. Obviously, there's definitely some legwork and some extra planning involved, but for me, that's worth it by far.
Sometimes there's less planning, though. It goes both ways, because if you've planned your route and you're like, oh, geez, we have to leave this campsite, which means we have to get by here the next day.
Right.
There's you don't have to plan to make such a long. If it's Crown, you could be like, well, maybe we'd like to get there, but like you said, you could just be like, you know what, we're just going to stay here, or there's a spot, we're going to camp here, and
your own schedule, right?
Yeah, it's more of a less of a planned out adventure in that sense. You don't have to have it so dialed in, But I think that's part of what kind of scares people off from Crown, is that it isn't in a template for them, right? They don't know, is there going to be a nice campsite on that lake? How do you? What's it like? Is there, do I have to hack out my own campsite? Is it, so that's part of the adventure, but at the same time, that's why you can find these lakes and you'll be the only person on it.
Yeah,
right?
I think too, it's a bit more of an authentic type of wilderness experience where it truly is kind of a make your own adventure. You don't know what you're going to find until you get there.
Yep.
There's been times where I've portaged into places and found just this absolute gorgeous campsite, only site on the lake, and there's been times where you're sawing saplings and clearing brush, but
right,
that's also part of it, right?
So
right,
true.
right. Well, in the States, they call this, if there's any Americans soon, and it's public land or state land.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here, right? Is what we call crown. And yeah, we're definitely, that's one thing that, you know, with doing more YouTube now, it's absolutely incredible how, when I look at my analytics, how like literally people from every country in the world have watched the videos.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Literally like it's countries. I'm like, that's a country, right?
Do you find that due in part to the fact that you were on alone, and is that broadcast like it's more than just North America, right? They must.
I mean, it airs live in North America, so Canada and the States, which is pretty good in the sense that not a lot of shows necessarily even do that. But then I'm sure it's packaged and sold, right? So some places might just be getting season 4 now for the first time on. Right. But it is distributed internationally. I don't know what all countries it has been distributed to, but alone hasn't been like, say you're on a recurring TV series that like I don't know, Mountain Men or something like that. It hasn't been there hasn't been a huge transition over into that genre. They're kind of different worlds, social media and from alone. So yeah, I get people saying, you know, recognizing me or being like, oh, I just realized you were from there, but it hasn't been necessarily like most people have no idea I was on alone, right? So
look at Brad's question. Clearly that's me. I'm the worst. I'm gonna say Karina. She's
I was
badass hockey player.
She was skating circles around all you guys out there. She was laying the body in the whole 9 yards.
Nate was quite the.
He was a good goalie.
Yeah, he was quite the goalie. He was blocking slap shots with his shins.
I'm not a hockey.
I think I was a good goalie. I think I was a good goalie for the first game, and then after that, things started to deteriorate. Also, if you've ever had Jim Baird bearing down on you from across the ice when you're in goal, there's a certain lack of motivation to block all shots.
Yeah.
Terror, sheer terror really helps.
That was just a blast.
I'd like to get a little more into your YouTube channel too, because obviously we talked about alone and stuff and some canoe tripping stuff, but your channel is very interesting. And I don't know if you've ever been called this, but you're kind of like an architect of the backcountry. You seem to have a knack, except for on alone. You seem to have a knack for building some really damn cool shelters out there.
Yeah, so I think a lot of this has to do with seasonal realities too, right? So, you know, I like to paddle in the summer, but I've always enjoyed that kind of thing. But when you're on, say, a canoe trip, you don't really have time to build a rock oven and bake things in it, right? Like that's just not something you could do. But that's something I've always been fascinated and enjoyed since I was a little kid and we were playing like Pioneer Village or whatever we were doing. So it's one of those things that's interesting because you don't know what you're going to create. You go out with an idea of what you're going to make, but what you make is based on the materials that are in that spot.
Right.
And as you make it, you develop it and come up with it gets more creative based on how you do it. You don't go in with like a guaranteed plan of what's going to work or not. So yeah, that's something that I like to do. So I've got the bushcraft and the shelters and stuff on my channel, but I've also got the adventures, the canoe adventures or winter camping and the stuff. I do a lot with Heather as well. And realistically, it might be better to just pick a niche and this is my niche, right? But it's like, well, I like doing, and we like doing all of this stuff, right? Yeah. So we're just going to do it. And, it's one of those things. In the bushcraft stuff, I guess it's hot, right? It's people love it. There's kind of a mesmerizing thing, a relaxing thing. And this is what I realized too, that a lot of people in the lives we live nowadays, want an escape into nature, and sometimes that comes through the way of YouTube for a lot of people. And this is content you're not going to get on TV if you even have TV, right? And of course, some parts in the world where they don't even have access to this kind of thing, right? So it's nice to share that with people. And I just like doing it all, and hopefully we'll get into more things, and expand the horizon. But I'm an architect, I guess.
You're a jack of all trades.
I like
architect of the backcountry. There you go. New
It's
T-shirt
fun.
idea right there. New T-shirt idea.
Yeah, it's fun building shelters. It's just like everyone loves lighting a fire in a primitive way. Like it feels like magic. You know what I mean? Like it feels like magic. You're like, I got this stick and a bow drill, and you're like, make a fire and it's just so cool, right? And so I think that's a primal thing that we all have, right? And maybe why people love seeing what you can make out of just the woods, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what I like about Ted and Heather's shelter videos is it's all very kind of on hand and kind of honest. Like, this is what's around me. This is what we're dealing with. Here's what we're going to build. The no cordage thing is always really cool to see. And just the creativity and just kind of the honest workload that goes into it, instead of kind of, coming out into the woods where you kind of prepped an area and, there's going to be certain things on hand and you brought some cordage and you almost have like a piece of paper with a plan on it. I think what a lot of people appreciate about your guys' content is it's very authentic that way. Is like, well, we're going to trek into here and we're going to build a shelter with what we see right around us. And that's just the way it's going to roll.
That's exactly what we do. Yeah, we might have a very loose plan, but not really.
Yeah, and which is a little more realistic. A lot of people will be like, well, as if you would have a shovel, or as if you would. And I mean, one of the things, like after being on a loan, you think about that. And I started realizing, like, well, why would, because I was like that too, even. I'm like, oh, someone's using a shovel and stuff. Well, why would you have nothing in a survival situation?
Right.
If your plane crashed, you might have an incredible amount of stuff. If your boat was marooned or broke down on some, North Vancouver Island, like the coast is pretty much, no one's around. So you could have a little amount of stuff or nothing. We've got into this idea with bushcraft that we should try to go out and survive with as little as possible. But that's often not necessarily going to be the case. A backpacker probably has gear, and if they might get injured or they might get lost, but very good chance that if they were winter trekking, they'd have a little collapsible shovel, right? So these are all hypothetical situations, right? So you never know what you're necessarily going to have or go in with. I do enjoy practicing with less gear too. That's fun. But I don't recommend it. I don't recommend going out, especially if you're not really skilled in it and stuff, going out there and trying to light a bow drill fire with no tarp shelter and, not the right clothing. Because that's another thing that doesn't get talked about a lot is really the clothes on your back might be the thing that keeps you alive. Mm-hmm. It might hammer rain, but guess what? I have a raincoat and you don't. And so you die and I live, right? But anyway, so that's, it's all part of it, right? And canoe, I think canoe trippers don't realize how many of these skills they actually possessed. I think it was your show last week, Dennis, where one of the guys was saying the term bushcraft hasn't even existed for more than 7 years, right? This was
that was Steinworth that said that.
Yeah, right. So that's kind of a newly coined term. But what we've been doing for a long time is, you have those skills. They might not have been put into a way that, was in the style that bushcraft is. It's kind of a bit of a style, but
you're still making a fire.
So I think
cooking.
Exactly. And I think canoe trippers and wilderness canoe trippers in particular, because you have to be very self-reliant and prepared, that they might have a lot more of these skills than they really recognize. And that's why we did so well on the loan, right? So anyway.
Actually, before we answer this question here, I like this comment by Darren here. It says, love Bella's interactions on those shelter doors. Always going for the food bag. She grabs and starts walking around.
Always with the food bag.
So this question from Matt Haughn, who's going to be on the show there in a week and a half with that special show that we got going on. What's the piece of gear you always have to have on every trip? Please tell me it's that big badass knife you have.
Yeah.
Probably.
So I'd probably pick, I'd probably pick a knife, right? If you're going to have one item, it would probably be a knife. And for me, it wouldn't be, personally, it wouldn't be a small knife that you can do a lot of whittling with, because if I'm going to have one thing in particular, I want it to be kind of a bit of a battle axe. You can make crude things with a beast knife, but you can baton and you can chop and you can do all kinds of stuff with it. But that's just a personal preference, right? I haven't spent a huge amount of time in the making like finer items in bushcraft. I'd say probably a knife, or even like if you got a small, sharp little hatchet, that would do pretty good too.
That knife / machete you have is pretty multi-purpose, so
you
can do a lot with it.
Yeah, that thing's freaking awesome. It's you can chop with it, flip eggs with the damn thing, even, right? And you can even hold it tight and do some fine whittling or carve little spoons with the edge, or remove bark with it. And
Can you tell us a bit about that knife? Like where'd it come from? What make is it?
It's made by Ontario Knife Company.
Yeah.
And it's called like Spec Plus or SP8 machete. It's not even that expensive. Like it's under $100. Like if you're from the States, I think maybe you can even get it on Amazon for $65, $70. It's a good, like, high carbon. It might be a trade secret what their exact metal is. I'm not sure. Steel is. I'm not sure.
So they're still available on market? Because I was talking to you about that one time a few months back. I was looking at that saying, I got to get me one of those things.
Yeah, they are available.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't sell the same sheath. My sheath is since disintegrated.
Right,
Here, I'll put you full screen. Show the people this thing, because I'm in love with this knife.
I don't have it.
Oh, okay.
It's around here.
And you go back in the corner.
It's probably in my float bag, which is kind of
for any of you that have watched this video. I think that was a big part of when you built the one shelter where you were peeling back that ash tree.
Yeah.
You use that knife quite a bit in there, right?
Yeah, I use that knife for like almost everything in that, and that knife I've had for a long time. The sheath that it comes with now is not as good, but the sheath I have now is kind of disintegrated because it's been sitting on the bottom of a canoe full of water for years. That knife came to Labrador with me and all kinds of canoe trips with me. I mean, we're not really known as the light packers, right? And so
we get made fun of quite a bit for the amount of gear we bring around.
So that trip's, exactly. And that knife, I brought it on a loan too. You were allowed one.
Yeah.
I'll take this thing. So
yeah. We got Karina in the base. I'm going to bring Karina up now.
Hey guys.
For those of you that are not familiar with this is Karina from Alexis Outdoors. How you doing, Karina?
I'm pretty good. Sorry, I'm a little late to the party here. I had some commitments tonight I had to attend.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's all right. Did you come packing?
No, actually.
No loan, bro?
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
I have a question for Ted.
Yeah.
Okay. What is a skill you wish you were better at or that you're continuously working on?
Boot goalie. No, just kidding. There's a lot of things. I mean, I wish I was better on, of course, but yeah, like, I wish I was better at processing animals, maybe like trapping, like that kind of like different things that, you practice like making primitive traps and that kind of, but that's all illegal, right? So unless you've actually been somebody that's done that, it's an excellent survival thing to know. So that would be something that, you know, as far as you're talking about survival, and if we were in a situation, that would be interesting. And another one is just homesteading type stuff, like, you know, how to grow my own food, how to be more self-sustainable, self-reliant, that kind of thing, is something that we're both interested in and would like to learn more about. And then other than the obvious other things, like, you know, I would like to be, I don't know, just, you know, Superman and that kind of stuff, right? So I'd say those were a couple things. Yeah.
Cool.
So the reason why we brought up the guests that we have on here, Karina and Nate, is because this whole YouTube thing nowadays, a lot of people are getting into doing collaborations, or, you know, they're doing videos together and stuff like that, which is one, good for channels, and it's good for the community to see people interacting and stuff like that. So Karina, I don't know if you caught that a few minutes ago. We were just talking about the hockey video, and somebody asked who was the best hockey player, and we all voted you, except for Heather. Heather voted herself. But,
no, that was a joke.
Never repeat goalie.
No, Karina is the badass hockey lady.
No.
yeah, and you know what? I always say this about collaboration videos. I love watching all the perspectives of it. Eh? Like if you watch Alexis Outdoors video of it, and then you watch, you know, the Baird brothers video, and it's you know, you get the different perspectives of it. Eh? So it's cool to watch the same shot happening in both videos, right? Like Karina might be doing a shot, skating around and taking Ryan out into the snow, and then you see. Who was it? Was it you, Ted, or Jim that did a video on it? I think it was.
We both did.
Yeah, there were
three videos. Yeah.
To see these different aspects of
and
it,
they were all
a lot of fun.
And it was funny because I put my video out first.
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden you guys got to like take for my video and have like 3 angles instead of just like the one that I had. So that was awesome.
We pirated.
Yeah.
Pirate.
I think the most important part of the whole collaboration thing in terms of social media is that, like, you know, I would happily sit down and have a couple beers with any of these folks if there was a single picture taken or video taken or not, right?
Yeah, it was a good time.
So it's gotta work on kind of like just a social, personal level as well, or else the collaboration, the point of the collaboration is sort of missing.
Definitely.
Yeah. Right.
That was the weekend after you were on the show, right, Karina? I think you and Ryan were leaving the next day or something to do that video shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
and I mean, that's part of what I like to do, like with my channel, because it's I just enjoy doing what's fun, right? And it keeps it fresh. And that was like, you know, that wasn't a trending topic, right? Backcountry hockey rink, but
right.
it was the best. Like it was just so much fun. And I think it's important to remember that, you know, you want to keep doing the things that you enjoy doing, so that you keep enjoying it, right? You know, even though sometimes it's, you know, might be better to do a trending type video, right? And that's why meeting up with you guys, like, what a good excuse to meet you guys, right? And to go do something fun together. So,
hey, you guys want to vlog through like hell to get to this cabin and then play hockey?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looked like quite the hike that you guys had to do to get out there.
Oh,
yeah, I feel bad.
Yeah. So, neat question for Ted and Heather. Okay, who's the better cook, Ted in the backcountry or Heather at home?
Oh,
I'm absolutely.
And I don't mean that in any derogatory way, because I'm not assuming you are the cook at home. But
I saw Ted.
No, when it comes to cooking fish, you win. Sorry, Nate. What was that?
I saw Ted dressed up as a waiter the other day, and he got also and I gotta say, from what I know from Heather's photos, it looks like it was a pretty good meal.
It was Uber Eats, Nate.
Yeah,
Uber Eats.
Not gonna lie, it was Uber Eats, but it was nice.
Yeah,
it was really nice.
It was. Yeah, in the backcountry, I guess sometimes we'll do some hard things, and I'll put Heather through the ringer, right? So like I'll go and I'll do, like, it's just it's been a really hard day, I'll make the food. But she's way better than me. I'm a terrible cook. Like, I'm so lazy that like I'll literally propose that we just eat power bars for dinner so that I can just fish longer, right?
Yeah, we definitely do a different kind of grocery shopping when I come on the trips. So, but Ted's really great at making fish. I'm not that great at that. So like he's awesome at preparing fish in just like the perfect way. Ted burns cereal.
Ted burns cereal. Thanks, Jim.
Jim, now he's a great backcountry cook.
Yeah, Jim's pretty good. I like when we travel with Tori and Heather because they'll make fry bread and all this kind of fancy stuff. And that's one thing that, Nate, back to your question, I would like to be better at. It's like eating, like coming up with different meals to eat when you're on an expedition or whatever that isn't just the same boring
Ted
garbage.
will just eat power bars the whole time. So I really have to be like, no, we're getting out the mess kit. We're making a fire. We're making some actual food that's not in bar form. But no, you're pretty good.
You know who's a great cook? This young lady down here. She makes gravel mac and cheese.
Oh.
Hey, I seen that.
Mac and cheese.
Gravel mac and cheese.
Gravel mac and cheese, the kind, the teeth breaking kind. Is that the
kind that is seasoned with ticks.
Oh.
In one of her last videos, there she tipped over her pot and half her mac and cheese ended up on the ground. Grizz is impressed.
I think that's where I draw the line. Like, we ate some bad stuff on alone, but I think a bowl of ticks might be where I draw the line.
Yeah.
I think I once I have a childhood memory of my mom accidentally we were car camping in Grundy Lake Provincial Park, and my mom accidentally dumping an entire pot of spaghetti over the strainer into the sand.
Aww.
I think that's happened to everybody at one time or another, Nate.
I think that vague childhood memory still makes me more careful with everything that comes off the fire to this day.
That is something with a sandy campsite. Somehow it always ends up in your food.
Everything.
Yeah. To everybody in the chat right now, if you want to pop some questions up, by all means, feel free to do so. I'll just put them up on topic, off topic. It doesn't really matter what you come out. So, Ted, besides power bars, what's your favorite backcountry dinner or dessert?
Well, Heather is the first one that's introduced me to a dessert out there that's not typical for me. But I'd say, my favorite meal is typically like a fish meal. Like if we can catch, a nice trout or like a walleye or anything, it just feels cool too. Like you're sporting yourself out there. And then we'll have like a little side with that. Like maybe we'll bring some like sidekicks or something. The dessert, I don't know. We don't really eat dessert. We brought some Mountain Houses recently. And what have we had? We've had
we've also done like the astronaut ice cream and freeze dried ice cream sandwiches. But I'll make like camp cones where you bring like ice cream cones and you melt chocolate and marshmallow in them. You wrap them up in tin foil and just put them on the coals for a minute, and that's pretty good. What else do we do out there?
This is the part of the show where everybody gains another 10 pounds of COVID weight. Yeah.
Right.
I can help you guys.
Okay.
I had another question for Ted. Oh boy. Or actually both of you. Speaking of COVID weight, what have both of you been doing to kind of occupy yourselves in terms of reading or watching? And you're not allowed to say making bread.
We actually haven't made bread, to be totally honest. We haven't done that yet.
Just pretty much arguing with each other.
Watching a lot of probably outdoor videos, dreaming of future trips for sure.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of pacing.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan, what's up? Hey. But yeah, not a lot of stuff like,
baking, not bread, but cookies and dessert.
Nothing that exciting. We do what we're allowed to do. and we go for walks in our park and our ravines and, you know, kind of stuff
Bella's
like that.
loving it. We're going for like 10 times the amount of walks that we normally do.
Yeah, but nothing really, you know, it kind of put the brakes on us a bit, and it's been a little bit weird.
Yeah.
When you're getting back to go, when you do get back into your content creation kind of schedule or routine, is there what's the most, I don't know, what's your favorite part about filming, and what's the part that you kind of dislike or kind of dread the most as far as lugging camera gear, setting up shots, or editing, or, you know, what, I don't know, what's it about for you?
I'd say
I hate lugging that camera gear.
yeah, lugging it is the worst part. Number one. I'd agree with that, because my gear, everything I have is so heavy. It's just I gotta get better at that, Nate. But yeah, once you get into the swing of the camera stuff, there was a time when it used to take away from it a bit more for me. It does still take away from it a bit, because it becomes more like a job, of course. But, you know, and for some people that are maybe doing 1 week trip once a year, they want some clips of it, but to document it heavily, like the way that all do, it might not be something that is necessarily rewarding for them. You know, especially if you're traveling with people that also don't want a camera in their face and don't want to be interviewed. It's kind of strange. But I've recently, like, I just kind of get in a mode where it's just something I do, right? So it's like when you're breaking camp in the morning, you get up, you like put the water on, you go here, you take this down. Just moving the camera is just something that I'm doing. It's like you put this here and put it on a time lapse, and you come over. And it definitely takes longer, and there's times where you don't feel like doing it, but less and less nowadays. It's just become part of the routine. And once that's happened, it's enjoyable. And when you come back and you go through it, I find I never really regret it, because when you put that into a story, into a video, it's just something you can relive for a long time. And it's just really nice. You know, the same reason people like having pictures of their trip. This is a good one.
Have those memories. That's something I need to get better at, for sure. Filming, editing, all that fun stuff.
She's pretty good right out of the gate, though. But yeah, I saw Karina, you're starting a new channel.
Yeah, congrats. That's exciting.
Yeah. Ryan's taking over. No, I'm kidding.
Ryan's taking over. Is it Ryan's All and Everything channel, or what?
I know.
Yeah, no, okay, so I have this passion for like trying to live sustainably. I'm like getting into the journey of low waste. And with our new house that we're getting, we're going to be doing a huge garden. We have like a huge backyard. So we're going to do a garden. We're going to have chickens, compost, and like anything I can do to make it like a tiny micro homestead. I'm really stoked about that. And I want to share my journey. So I figured might as well start a new channel. That
That's
way
awesome.
watch can and
Let the games begin, right? If one channel's not enough for the work of one channel, you can take on a second. Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
I name it just Karina Alexis. I'm gonna go with how everybody else just names their channels what their names are.
Cool. Is it already active, or are you just waiting until you make the move?
Just waiting to make the move so I can, and I'll probably backlog a few videos too, so I can stay on top of things, because that bothers me so much when I'm stressing about something. I don't make good content that way. So if I can get a good a head start on it, that's what I'm trying to do.
Cool.
So a number of you guys are like, living your kind of dream job in that you're basically creating outdoor content that is, perpetuating your lifestyle. But if you weren't a content creator, or you weren't in the current job that you're doing right now, what do you think you'd be doing, or what would your dream job be?
Well, Nate, I always wanted to play in the NHL.
Still holding on to that. Don't break his heart.
But after playing against Karina and she was dusting me, I realized I should probably
champion.
I should hang up the dream, right? Like
Hang up those skates. forever. No, I'm kidding.
I'm like, I don't know if I can do it anymore. But yeah, I mean, that was like, if you could go back in time, be amazing. That'd be a fun run. And I like the direction that we're going with stuff for sure. But yeah, it would be awesome to live to like 1,000 years old, so I could do all these things. Go swim, dive with the sharks, like or
That's
something.
my thing. That's
Yeah.
my dream.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, I'd be like a marine biologist and like swim with great white sharks and stuff like that.
Yeah. That would be cool.
Marine
I get that's one thing about social media. It gives me a lot of freaking FOMO. Like I'm like, well, I'm never gonna be this like incredible whale diving shark belly tickler. Like I want to do that. I'm like, damn it, right? So, but it's inspiring too.
Okay, Ted, you want to do a speed round here? We got a ton of questions in the chat that I wouldn't mind getting answered. Let's do quick answers, and then we can get back into the fun, the fun stuff. Boy, did that come out wrong. Open mouth and surf foot, right? No, you know what I mean. Anyway, where is it here? Okay, really quick. First meal after winning alone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jay. This isn't going to be very exciting. It was like so far down the line, and they were coming back to a bit of a refeeding program, and it was kind of like a vegetable soup. It wasn't great. But after that,
home.
Yeah, when I got home, I on the plane. Okay, we got to the airport. I pounded a burger and a pack of licorice. It was like I had this craving because before I left, I ate Cinnabon and I ate licorice, just like Twizzlers on the plane. And for the whole time I was out there, I just wanted freaking Twizzlers and Cinnabon. So when I got back, that's what I ate. I pounded these Twizzlers on the plane, probably a horrible idea. And then when I got back, my aunt and uncle came over to visit, and they brought me like 2 boxes of Cinnabons.
Ted pounded like a dozen of them at once.
Yeah, so I ate those until I felt like dying. And, those were the exciting meals. But there was a bit of a slow process.
Cool. Michael's asking, do they think being nomadic on the show alone would be a good strategy? Moving campsite to campsite, perhaps?
Yeah. One of the challenges of alone is that you have an allotted space. Now, the space is quite large, and the camera gear you get is like a Pelican case that's like, I can't even fit it in here. Like, it's so huge. To move it anywhere realistically, you'd have to like make it into a boat, which is also not allowed. So you are pretty stuck, and that's just kind of the nature of the rules. In that respect, alone is almost harder than a real survival situation, other than you can tap out and leave. You have to film it all, and you have to abide by certain rules because there are certain rules. So I think if you could travel, it would be good, but you're somewhat limited to where you can travel.
Cool. Very cool. How often do they come to check on you while you're out on alone?
It was random, I think, to throw us off because they wanted it to be as real as an experience as possible. And they would make certain decisions clearly, like they didn't brief me on this, but clearly based on weather, when it was safe for the safety team, safe for us, maybe when, you might have been, it was getting later in the game and it made sense safety-wise to check on you. Or there was a possible injury. So it ranged anywhere from 10 days, maybe 2 weeks at a time, to as little as, I don't know, like 5 days, right?
Yeah. And at that time, when they come to do your medical checks, is that when they like would replenish your your battery gear and stuff like that?
Right. So we would get like a 30-liter bag full of batteries and stuff. And so they would do a med check, which of course they have to do for amazing.
Sorry, threw you right off.
That's okay.
30-liter bag of batteries.
So they would bring. So you often wouldn't see them doing that, right? Because they would do a media swap. but they have to for insurance and to make sure that you're safe, right? Do a med check. And so somebody would kind of like sneak in the back and just like, you know, you'd go back there and your stuff had been replaced, right? Yeah.
Grizz.
Let's see
Crazy.
here.
Yeah.
There's Grizz. Yeah, we'll get back to that question I put up earlier. It never got answered, but here's another one. Seems like you do a lot more action, a lot less talking. Is that something you do on purpose with your videos?
Yeah. So I like, if you can't tell, I do talk quite a bit.
He never stops talking.
But that's so that's a bit of it. It's hard to appease everyone. So in some of the videos, if you just film it really well, if someone wants to know how to do it, you've showed them. You don't necessarily have to explain, now I'm lighting a fire, like now I'm shaving a stick.
That's what I do.
What's that?
That's what I do.
Well, you know, you don't necessarily have to do that, but somewhere in the middle is good. But again, there's a very global audience and not everyone speaks English. So that's a huge thing. And you know, videos that will have this incredible reach. You know, I'd have a hard time tuning into a shelter building video that if somebody was just speaking, you know, in whatever, Cantonese or something, I wouldn't understand. And I'd rather watch them just do it with no talking. So that's a large part of it for me. And I think people also enjoy sometimes just the same reason I enjoy nature. I enjoy having fun and talking, but sometimes I like to just be quiet and listen to the birds and the snow or the sticks snapping under your feet and the fire. And I think when we're filming videos, we don't realize we're getting our fill of that, but the viewer isn't necessarily. If you're just telling them what you're doing the whole time, because half the time your camera's not on and you're enjoying yourself with the fire, right? So I like to give them some of that too.
I wonder how a live stream like this would work out like that, where we all just sit here and say nothing. Social experiment. Let's
It would blow up, man. It would go viral. Just play a TikTok video, a song over it, and you're good.
So somebody asked earlier, and I put it up on screen there, was whether Grizz and Bella have connected on
Tinder. Bella, come here, Bella.
Bella and Grizz, yeah, they match.
Somebody had mentioned something about, you know, they're both not fixed, and they'd make some really good, cute puppies, eh?
They would.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe next heat. Bella did. She went into heat recently, but it was quarantine.
Good.
And, good girl.
Look at that, Bella quarantine's cutting out on your nookie time. Look at that. Eh?
It's in the cards. It's in the cards. Dennis, do you want one of them?
Oh my God! You know what? I probably would, but I don't know if how my dog would take it.
Yeah.
My dog Molly, she's the greatest dog. She loves other dogs and stuff, but
Molly's old news. It's time for a new one.
Aww.
Yeah, well, she gives me less grief than the daughters do. So
I'm just kidding.
And if my daughters are listening, yes, it's true.
Yeah. Well, it might happen. It's definitely in the cards, so that would be fun.
Cool. Tina's full of good questions tonight. Eh? What wisdom would mature Ted pass on to teenager Ted? I like that question. That's a good one.
I had a lot of just bad things I shouldn't say in my head, but yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, you know, I think with a lot of what we've been doing over the years, sometimes the direction is, you know, you're like, we want to do outdoor stuff, and where does it go? And as long as you keep moving forward, it's strange what doors open for you that you didn't necessarily prepare for. And alone was definitely one of those. You know, if we hadn't been doing the expeditions, the trips, and following that passion we were doing, there's no way we would have, you know, got the opportunity to go on alone. So, you know, just keeping at it, I think is an important one. And, you know, I would tell myself that. Just keep at it, buddy.
Yeah.
Ted, I had a burning question. I actually wrote it down so I would remember it, and then I had to edit it. It's kind of a a serious question because you never know with all this collaboration stuff going on what could theoretically happen.
Mhm.
But who would you rather arm wrestle? Would it be Joe Robinette or Kevin Callan?
Rather?
Yeah, you
Sorry,
had to
sorry,
arm
Tina,
wrestle
you just
one-
got pushed out of the best question category.
That's a tough one. It sounds like fun, especially if you had a few pops first. I don't know. I feel like I'd rather wrestle Kevin, arm wrestle Kevin. He's just somebody that I'd just be like, out with the old, in with the new.
I don't. You know what? I bet you Kevin would win. I bet you Kevin would win. You want to know for what reason?
He probably would.
He would make you start laughing your ass off so hard that you would lose all control and he just bam down.
I don't know, Dennis. All those years of Jay stroking, he's probably just an absolute. He probably got an absolute power forearm, and he would just dust me. It would be embarrassing.
I hope Kevin's been here to
challenge
defend
is
it.
on now, so Kevin, feel free to challenge Ted.
I'm gonna sit here with like elastic bands for months. Just
No
like,
more whiskey fireside chat. It's gonna be a whiskey arm wrestling
Yeah.
chat.
This could be a whole new YouTube series in itself.
Right?
Oh my god.
Yeah, arm wrestling challenges.
yeah.
Ryan, you got rid of the COVID stash here.
Yeah, I did.
Clean.
Clean,
Okay, no more 70s porn star. Okay.
It'll be back. It makes its appearance once in a while.
No.
You're lost, Karina.
No.
She's like, it's gone.
That's all right.
It's actually my eyebrow, and it comes down for a drink and then goes back up.
Okay. I have to remember that one. Ted, who do you look up to? Who do you follow on YouTube and learn from?
It's okay, Dave. My name.
I don't know. I watch a wide variety of things. There's kind of a rabbit hole that you can get sucked down on YouTube. I mean, that's part of what I love about just the internet nowadays is the information is incredible. So whatever you want to learn, you can kind of learn. And YouTube's a lot like that. So I find myself watching stuff. If I want to renovate a bathroom, I'm on YouTube. But I do watch, bushcraft stuff and adventure stuff. I definitely don't watch any of Jim's videos.
Liar, he watches them all, Jim.
Basically what I watch, Dennis, is just my videos over and over again. That's why they have so many views.
I was going to say you're not even subscribed to Jim's channel because you don't want to give him that leg up, right?
It hasn't. Nobody actually has watched any of them. It's just been me just hitting that clicker over and over again. But I definitely have got inspiration from it. There was a time when I was like, YouTube is just, what's the point? Like, it's so hard and this and that. But like over time, realizing what everyone can, the successes you can have and opportunities, I figured, give it a go. And I owe that credit to a lot of people that have done it before me, and inspired me for sure.
And who's that? Who's your inspirations? Like in the world of bushcraft or just the outdoorsy stuff? I know you mentioned a lot about your family and stuff like that, but
yeah, I mean, I'd say like, as far as videos go, it's not necessary. I mean, teaming up with Sean James was great for me just because I can see how he's pulled that whole thing together as a business. So that was inspiring to see that, there's a formula there that can work. And, but as far as just actually doing the adventures and stuff, it would have to be teaming up with Jim, and the stuff we've done together has to be, where it started, and that inspired me to like move forward and then start doing all the stuff with Heather and on our channels, and her love of it and coming into it and us doing it together has been really good. And that's where the core of this, the fulfillment comes from, is doing it with those people. And then hopefully if that works well and you're passionate enough, it translates into success in videos, of course. Right. But, you know, I don't know that there's a lot of the stuff has just been self-driven that I've done, you know, like not really taking whitewater courses or whatever. It's just wanting the adventure and doing it. Right. So that's a bit of it. And so I don't have like a mentor YouTuber per se, I suppose, you know, that I like. Right?
So Heather, why don't you have a YouTube channel? Is it one in the family enough, or?
It's actually something I'm thinking of in future. I have to get a little bit better with the camera and the video and, you know, just editing and all that fun stuff. But, you know, it's fairly new to me, but I'm getting a lot more used to it. Yeah. There was a time where I was like, get that camera out of here. But now I'm like, okay, you know, I like, you know, reliving this and having the memories and sharing it with everybody as well. And now that it's become, you know, like a career path for us, I definitely want to get more into it. So, you know, stay tuned. Maybe there's more to come.
I'm afraid when she does it, because she just was immediately better on camera than I was, right? So, like, when I started, I acted like a wrestler. I was like, we need to get in the canoe and paddle down the river. Like, it was just it was the worst. I'm just like, it's raining. Like, everything sucks. Like, I'm like, what am I doing?
I'm like, you know, you can just talk normally to the camera, right?
Yeah, like, I don't know what I was doing, right? So she was just way better. So when she starts, I'm nervous when she starts her channel. She's probably just going to blow mine out of the water like day one. So, you know, but
I'm not really one for public speaking and talking in front of large crowds, but you know, I'm trying to get better at it. So
yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny because what was it? Either the last video you put out, Ted, or the one before that in the shelter, and Heather comes crawling in right up to the camera. She sticks her tongue out. I don't know. I think you thought that was going to get on the cutting room floor, didn't you?
I didn't think that was going to be put in the video, but
she was just so cute. I just had to leave.
Yeah. It's like, you got to be careful what you do on camera, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
So, Karina, quick question for you. You've been out to your day camp there because you were going to go out there and destroy it, and the guy said no, leave it up. But you've been out in the last couple of videos. You've still been out there. Were they all shot at the same time?
Yeah. So the gear video that I put out today, and then that last shelter video were both shot at the same time, which is why I forgot to do
your outro and yeah. You know what? I'm actually looking forward to seeing you up at your new digs there, because in your outro there was a car coming by and I could see the look on your face, like, damn.
Oh, you have no idea, Dennis.
Even that happened.
To the art of editing, because about every 2 minutes a car went by and I was just like, no, like just getting so mad every time. I'd stare at them as they're just going about their business on their day, and I'm staring at them as they go by. How dare you ruin my video?
Yeah.
It happens a lot with planes too. Like, you don't realize how many planes are soaring over you when you're trying to get a shot. But
yeah,
my day camp is right next to an airport. Like I got an airport probably 5-6 kilometers away. And if you watch any of my day camp videos, I guarantee you're going to hear a plane in there at one point or another, because they like fly. That and geese.
Geese is okay, but sometimes you can be in a really remote place and a plane will just ruin it and make it seem like you're in like downtown Toronto or something.
It happened a lot this winter.
I was in the middle of the bush this winter, just on the border of the park, tiny little no-name lake, had a fire going, and then 30 seconds later, like, super, super low, this M&R plane just buzzes the whole lake.
Yeah.
And you're like, I guess they're doing, you know, they do some moose surveys around that time of year, etc. But yeah, still it's a little surreal when that kind of thing happens.
I think they're just being cowboys.
Yes, that also happens.
Yeah. Ted, you had mentioned about Sean James. You and your brother went up there and you're helping him with the longhouse build.
Yeah.
And I know he's looking for. Are you guys going to be going back up there once all this stuff is cleared up to give him a hand with that still?
I mean, I hope so, because, you know, that's a big project that's hanging on, you know, not being completed. And luckily we got as much done as we did. And that it is solid and all that bark has lasted as well as it has. But with all of this, uncertainty right now, it's hard to say. Right. And he's got ash trees up on his property that are dying because the emerald ash borer is killing them. So they got to be used before, because the ash, the bark really it's quite thick. It really rots and turns to mush quick on the tree before it falls sometimes. So hopefully in the sap, whatever's left, because they're still partially alive, to peel that bark needs to happen in the spring. So if you saw the video I did of that shelter build, that was a tree that blew down in July or late June, and I harvested the bark off of it in November, right? Early winter. And it was such a challenge. Like, I had to take it off with a knife, and it was almost at times I'm like, I don't know if it's possible. When you get it, when the sap's running, you literally cut your line to measurements around, and then you just start that thing, and then you can just push it off with your hands, and it comes off like a freaking dream.
That easily, right?
Oh, it just pushes. It's slick and slimy, and it just like, you can push it off with your hands. Like, it's amazing. And that's the time to get it, because the scope of what we have to, the trees are dying, the scope of what we have to do, we need quite a bit. So, we need to kind of do it in the spring, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out. Maybe Sean will just have to do it all on his own if we can't go see him, I don't know. But hopefully.
I'm sure he'd be up to it. That guy, he's a workhorse out there. He does a hell of a job, doesn't he?
Yeah, the guy's, I don't know what he is. I think he's like, maybe some sort of Terminator or something.
I know. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm just like rolling out of bed, and Sean built another cabin in a garden by the time I'm like cracked, like poured my first coffee, it would appear.
That's a good question from Jonathan.
Jonathan's asking, are you guys able to record with people around, or are you too self-conscious?
What do you mean?
He means, like, if you're out there and there's people standing around or in the area and you're like talking into a camera, does that make you self-conscious?
That's something I have to get better at for sure, but you're great with it.
It took time, right? Like, at first you were like, you overthink it, and really you just got to just be yourself, right? And so, but I don't really care. But what's hard is, like, let's say we're doing a collaboration with you guys. The first time we're meeting, it's like, feels weird to just like show up and be like, hey, Karina, like the first time I'm meeting you, like cameras. And it's like, that's kind of what you're supposed to do. Like, it's good collabing with other YouTubers and stuff for that reason, because they're not as weirded out by it than if it was like just your buddies doing a canoe trip. They'd be like, you're ruining my trip, like it's what they would think. Right. But yeah, not too much, it's definitely, I guess, easier, when you're just two people, I suppose. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Someone puts you on the spot, a little more challenging.
So Ted and Heather, where are you bolting to as soon as possible, as soon as this is over?
There's so many places. Where are we going first?
I've got a tentative trip planned with Jim that was supposed to happen in May. But
straight to your house, Nate.
But I don't know. And then Heather and I would like to get out and do some, some shorter trips, just up in Crown. And that's just the thing. It's just get out and do something. We're just excited to do something, right? What'd you say?
Yeah, we're hoping to do like a bigger canoe trip late summer. We're looking at some different rivers like the Blood Vein, and we'll see what happens. But
yeah. So we've got
something cool,
exciting things we would like to do.
Awesome.
Yeah, but we don't have anything like super fantastic for you.
Who would you like to do a collaboration with, Ted?
I don't know, just like somebody who's just going to get me rich overnight.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Your honesty.
No answer. Like, someone who's just going to be like, oh yeah, here you go, Ted. You got $1 million, so you're set.
Hey, Tanya, you want to go on a canoe trip?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I don't know, but in our industry, it would be fun to do stuff with a lot of different people, but it's the reality of how it works. It's hard logistically to pull it off. Like collaborations are kind of weird. You know what I mean? Like you don't have like a set script and where's everyone putting their camera? And I feel like the first time you do it, it's probably doesn't go as smoothly as the second time. Like I bet you if we met up and did one again, it would probably be more smooth and like whatever, because you're just used to it. So, you know, I don't know, Dennis, you know.
Wouldn't it seem more scripted though if it were like a second time around, because now you kind of know each other a little bit and stuff? I like the first off, you know, when you're all getting to know each other and it's a little more of a party atmosphere, you know, you're all tipping beers and
for sure. Yeah.
Dennis,
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about the party atmosphere part of that. I don't know.
no, I don't believe you, Nate.
We've got that part down.
That's why it was so hard getting out, Dennis, because we were just pulling so many beers, right?
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say maybe Karina doesn't drink as much as you guys. Maybe that's why she is skating circles around y'all, right? But
I think her metabolism is just so high because she's just doing this.
What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
Yeah.
believe me, if I was on the ice, Karina, you'd be doing 1,000 circles around me too, man. It's been a while since I've been on a setup lake. Ted, have you ever thought of doing some outfitting, specializing in extreme canoe trips?
Yes. You know, it's definitely crossed my mind at times, and it'd be interesting. Like, there's definitely something very satisfying of bringing new people out there that want to experience this and sharing it with them. But at the same time, I've steered away from a little bit of that, just because of the different aspect of it. You know, you've got to have insurance and do all these kind of things, and you've got to go get certs. And like I said, I'm pretty much self-taught, right? So I don't have like whitewater certifications and all these kinds of things that nowadays you have to have, or certain certifications for to run a business.
Good one.
Yeah, and I was just reading a little.
No, that's why we're afraid.
Ted's too scared.
So I thought about it. You know, you never know.
Actually, here's a question for Michael that's asking, Nate and Alexis, do you have channels, and can you tell me a bit about it?
You start, Nate.
Well, I do not have a channel. I have a YouTube account that allows me to do stuff like this. And but I hang out on Instagram at Nate Muskoka, and I post photos, and I do some stories, and I do a little bit of live stuff now and then. And that is the extent of my social media engagement. There you go.
Yep. And before you start, Karina, Michael, this is the fastest growing account on YouTube that's on this screen right now. So carry on, Karina.
That's not true. I don't have 1 million views on one video like Ted does.
I'd say like 80-something thousand in a year is a pretty darn good growing channel. So carry on. And I congratulate you on that. That's awesome.
I think we're all taking a hit with this, but yeah, no, I run Alexis Outdoors. Outdoors isn't my last name. But yeah, I do all the outdoor things.
Not as intense as like bear.
Yeah, I'm not like.
By all means, everybody in the chat, please do check out the channels: Alexis Outdoors, Ted Baird on YouTube, and Nate Muskoka on Instagram. They're all great in their own rights, and it's great entertainment, especially during this COVID-19 stuff. You know, I don't have cable TV. This is my entertainment is watching YouTube, so I enjoy watching all your channels and everything, and following you on Instagram and things of that sort. But, you know, it's the times, you know, we're spending a little, probably too much time on our asses right now watching all this stuff. I know I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
My ass is sore from sitting on it.
I know, right? I got indentations from my laptop sitting on my lap, right? I hope it's not bad for like a guy's junk or something to have all this computer radio action sitting on your lap all the time, right?
Laptops can give you testicular cancer if you leave them on your lap. I've heard that.
I'm
Put it on the
finished.
table. The laptop.
Oh my God, where's this show going, huh?
I have a question for Ryan and Karina and Nate. So, are you guys up for doing it again next winter, or have we scared you off forever?
This time we have to do like Baird's collab with Alexis Outdoors and Nate Muskoka, and we survive in the wilderness, doing bushcraft and catching our own food. And
I like it. I like it.
That sounds really hard.
Notice how the old guy doesn't get invited. It's okay though.
You're welcome too. You're welcome too, Dennis.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Do it.
Yeah.
I think I like the idea of saying we're gonna do stuff, do that stuff, and then just eating food and playing hockey.
Yeah. No, I'm down for
Yeah.
anything. I'm down for any of those ideas.
No, that walk was particularly hard. I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times, and that was up there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm down for it again. I know Christine is.
Yep.
Moose, however, Moose will not be joining us next time.
Oh no.
He had to ride back on the sled, right?
Yeah,
We'll chopper Moose in. We'll have him choppered in.
There you go.
Perfect. But yeah,
Anyways,
guys,
guys.
I really appreciate the content that that Karina and Ryan and Ted and Heather are putting out right now, because it does help so much in these times to be able to watch and consume actually good educational content. And Dennis, what you've been doing lately has been extraordinary, and it's helped kind of bond together the Ontario and Beyond Outdoors community, and it's really meant a lot to so many of us. So thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Nate. I appreciate that.
100%.
Everybody, thank you. It's
Thank you.
you know what? It's a lot of fun for me to do this and bring it across to everybody. And you know what? We're all affected right now. But you know what? This started even before the COVID stuff. So I'm just hoping that my summer, once things do open up, doesn't affect this too much, because I really enjoy putting out these shows, and I got some great guests lined up for the near future. So
Yes,
Okay.
too.
that's all good stuff. And on that note, if you guys please don't go anywhere once I close up shop here, but it's about that time. It's almost 9:30, so we've been going for 25 minutes after overtime. So this is like the shootout round. And that's all good. Just going to close up the show for this week. I just want to thank everybody that has been in the chat tonight for participating. If you haven't already done so, please check out the Ted Baird's channel, Alexis Outdoors, and Nate over there on Instagram. Check out their stuff, and they've got some great videos. Make sure you get caught up on their libraries. At the same time, I'd appreciate if you hit that subscribe button down below. Maybe smash a thumbs up if you haven't already done so. And check out my Facebook page at Canoehound's Outdoor Adventure Show for a full listing of upcoming shows on Tuesday nights. Just to recap, this coming Tuesday, so the next week's show, we're going to have Stephen Coutts on. We're going to be talking about canoe polling, which is going to be a really cool topic. May 22nd at 7 p.m., which is a Friday. That's a different night for my show, something that's a little different for us. It's a special edition show with Chris Prose, Matt Haughn, who's the producer of Mark in the Park on Rogers Television, and Ben Stacey from Two Men in a Canoe. They are all recording, or I guess you would call them videographers. They're all in the business, and they all have the know-how how to produce a great video for YouTube. So if you're looking to improve your video skills and editing skills, you want to make sure you tune in, because we're covering everything. You're going to have Mac, you're going to have PC, you're going to have all your different camera gear. You're also going to have different editing techniques, shooting, you name it, it's there. Tune in. You're going to want to check that one out. If you can't, you can always catch it on replay, right? Everybody in the chat tonight, Karina, Ryan, thanks very much for joining us. I wish we could have got more in with you, but you guys are like regulars on the show now. And Grizz.
Hi, Grizz.
Thanks for jumping in. Ted, Heather, and Bella. Thanks for you guys have been great guests tonight. Thanks for sharing all your adventures with us, and we really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us. It was it's a good time, and yeah, I just love what you're doing. So
it was a long time in the making, right? So, and I'm glad it finally come to fruition. So that's awesome. In the meantime, I'm Dennis from Canoehound Adventures, saying everybody stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep the adventures alive. Have a great night, everybody. Cheers.
yeah.
Yeah.